It all started 300 years after the Great Disaster. Magic spiraled out of control. The demon race descended from the skies and began a long, brutal war against humanity. After that war, the human population dropped sharply, and society collapsed. 10 powerful people awakened great magic and created huge protective barriers. These barriers held back the invading demons, letting humanity survive for a while. Humanity then entered a new age. When people reached adulthood, each person awakened a profession. The 10 original powerhouses turned their professions into inherited professions. Each of these inherited professions could exist in only one person at a time, becoming pillars for all of humanity. At Faihuen City, the sky was bright and clear. It was the year 335, April 1st, on the Cataclysm calendar. The profession awakening ceremony was about to start. A cart stopped in front of tall buildings, and someone called out that they had arrived. A young man named Feng stepped down from the vehicle and thanked his uncle Zhang. The large plaza was crowded. People gathered for the annual awakening test. Feng looked around in amazement, thinking the annual awakening test truly lives up to its reputation. It's packed. When people reached adulthood, they took the awakening test. Professions had different ranks: N rank, R rank, S rank, SR rank, and UR rank. Higher rank professions had stronger combat power, and those who awakened rare professions could directly enter elite academies. Young people walked among tall statues of past profession holders, praying for good luck. Feng watched them quietly. A voice from the crowd prayed to one of the statues, asking the great berserker to bless them so they could awaken at least an SR rank profession. But another loud voice came from the crowd, telling the people in front to hurry because the speaker's test was coming soon. Nearby, Feng stood silently watching the line. A girl prayed toward a statue, saying that she admired Lady Tianu since childhood, and asking her for a blessing to awaken the most noble inherited profession. Hearing this, others thought it was funny and wondered who would daydream like that in broad daylight. Seeing those students, Feng then turned to someone beside him and asked what the people were doing. The other person looked surprised and asked Feng if he didn't know. He explained that there was a rumor that this year's test would produce a new inherited profession holder. He added that there were currently 4 vacant inherited professions, so it was natural that everyone was praying hard. Hearing that, Feng felt that everyone's eagerness to advance seemed stronger than usual this year. To him, that meant business would be good. Suddenly, bright magical fireworks burst in the sky, signaling the start of the testing. Someone shouted for everyone to hurry because the tests had officially begun. Inside the hall, the examiners read out the results one by one. They announced that Lin Hu awakened an R-rank profession at level 10 with 13 magic power. Then they reported Winza as an N-rank profession at level 8 with 8 magic power. After that, they announced Ji Fei, who awakened an S-rank profession at level 34 with 55 magic power, and Ji Fei was accepted. A student with short hair was shocked to hear that Ji Fei actually had 55 magic power, and he wished he had that much magic power too. When Feng heard that, he immediately held up a bright red tomato and asked that short-haired man if he would like a tomato that could increase magic power. The short-haired man looked shocked at the offer. He asked in disbelief if it was really a tomato that increased magic power. Feng explained that he was a spirit plant doctor and this tomato was a premium variety he had carefully cultivated. He also said that each tomato increased magic power by 5% within 5 minutes, and that each one cost only 5 gold coins. He then showed a bag filled with different spirit plants, tomatoes, long cucumbers, sweet potatoes and small yellow beans. He said that he also had hunger sweet potatoes that kept someone full for a whole day, fat-burning cucumbers, and strongman beans that increased attack power by 10%. Hearing that, 2 people nearby whispered among themselves. One of them wondered if this was a scam because he had never heard of spirit plants like these. Another person questioned how something could increase magic power and help someone lose weight. The short-haired man holding the tomato told them to just buy one and try it for themselves. He said they could check the buff effect after eating it, and complained that he was tired of eating energy bars every day. Feng leaned forward with a confident smile. He announced that it was first come, first served. He said the quantity was limited, and once they were gone, they were gone. Then he added that the first customer could try one for free. Hearing that, the short-haired man stared at the tomato in his hand with a doubtful face. He looked tense and unsure. He then took a bite of the tomato. His face was still hesitant, but he bit into it anyway. Right after eating it, his expression changed completely. He clenched his fists with excitement as a bright glow of energy appeared behind him. He shouted that his magic power really increased and that his body felt lighter. A blonde young man nearby stared in shock and asked if he was seeing things because he knew that the spirit plant vegetables were developed by the Extraordinary Academy's agricultural department, and he heard they were usually supplied to SR rank professions. Feng told that man that this was a special promotion for the test convention since everyone here had the potential to become academy students. Hearing that, the blonde man's eyes lit up, and he quickly asked Feng to wrap all of the vegetables for him. Hearing that, a small crowd gathered around to buy those vegetables and grew angry. One person complained loudly, saying he was here first. Another shouted that he wanted 10. Someone else praised the tomatoes, calling them extraordinary produce. Another excited person said that his magic power really did get a boost. Feng watched the scene with a small smile. He thought about his situation. He knew that even though he had only a farmer profession, ever since he maxed his level, all the vegetables and fruits he grew gave beneficial buffs. He admitted to himself that he used some marketing tactics, but the effects of his produce were real. After selling all of his vegetables, Feng sat alone in front of a certain shop. He was packing his bag quietly and was about to leave but suddenly noticed someone coming toward him. When he looked up, he saw that same blonde man from before approaching. Seeing that blonde man, Feng listed the things he sold: chestnut pumpkin seeds for 5 gold, flour rhino manure for 7 gold, grape wine making sugar for 10 gold, and some magic power boosting potions worth 257 gold. After listing everything, he handed over 10 gold to that blonde man and said it was his payment. This blonde man was Feng's friend who helped him sell his vegetables by boasting about them as a customer. As the blonde man accepted the coins, Feng complained that he didn't have enough money left to buy premium fertilizer for improving his fields. The blonde man thanked him, calling him Brother Feng. He said the spirit plants were very useful and asked why he didn't grow more. Hearing that, Feng got annoyed and hit the blonde man, asking if he thought growing spirit plants with such effects was easy. Later, the two of them walked together under a clear blue sky. The blonde man said it was a shame because Feng had high talent since childhood, yet he was only. But before he could complete his words, Feng interrupted and told him to hurry home, saying Aunt Zhou was waiting for him. Then Feng walked alone under a bridge, thinking about what that blonde man was saying. Although people called him a genius since childhood, he only awakened an N-rank farmer profession. He recalled that when he went to burn paper offerings for his deceased father, who had been an archdruid, he was scared his father might jump out of the coffin. Thinking positively, he said that maybe this was karmic balance, since he had a herbalist mother and an archdruid father, yet he became a farmer. But in truth, he was satisfied with his peaceful life. He felt relieved that he did not have to go to the battlefield and die like his father, and that his mother would not have to worry. As he walked forward, he said that even if it was only for his mother's sake, he must take care of their family farm properly. But suddenly a single drop of water fell on his face. He looked up in confusion. He asked himself why it was raining when the sky was clear, but wind suddenly swirled around him and a man came falling toward him from the sky. That man fell toward the street with a terrified face. Feng watched in shock as the man crashed into the ground. He panicked and wondered what was happening. He asked if the wall had broken or if demons had invaded. But before he could understand anything, that fallen man lying on the ground suddenly woke up. He was surrounded by broken stone pieces. His bag and a lantern lay beside him. The injured man on the ground held a small device tightly. With panic in his eyes, he spoke quickly that the inherited profession holder, necromancer He Shao, had betrayed them and was trying to transfer his profession inheritance to the demon race. That injured man thought to himself that he needed to notify someone as soon as possible. But before he could act, a huge dark claw wrapped in purple light appeared above him. The claw's power made the air shake as it moved toward him. The man looked terrified as the purple energy surrounded him. Feng, watching from a distance, was shocked, wondering what was happening. He could not believe that someone could transfer an inherited profession to the demon race. He questioned if that was even possible. Suddenly, a demon-like figure whose whole body was covered in purple energy appeared and crushed that injured man. His dark voice echoed in the purple haze. He called that injured man a fool who saw everything, but instead of running, he was rushing to his death. That demon-like figure grabbed his shoulder and thought that if he hadn't been injured by forbidden magic, he would have escaped the city already, and once he transferred his inherited profession to the demon race, he would gain an immortal body. But since he had been delayed for so long, the academy had probably noticed his actions by now. But suddenly the demon's eyes narrowed sharply as it sensed something. At his side, Feng, while trembling, tried to sneak away from there slowly because he had stumbled into a murder scene. He thought that since the demon had not noticed him yet, he should quietly slip away. He began tiptoeing backward, trying to leave without making a sound. But before he could, that demon surrounded by swirling purple energy extended his hand toward Feng, asking if he had ever said Feng could leave. He grabbed Feng by the collar and lifted him into the air. The demon told Feng that the person who had just died was the famous Dean Yu Yi of the Extraordinary Academy. He said the dean died pitifully and asked if he should use Feng's blood and bones as an offering to honor the dead dean. Feng gritted his teeth as purple energy wrapped around him. He thought that this twisted pervert demon's magic power was terrifying. He could not break free at all. Holding his breath, Feng tried to stay calm. He asked himself if there was anything he could use, anything that could drive the demon away. Suddenly he noticed a small farming tool floating nearby, glowing with purple light. Feng extended his hand toward it and used his Farm Tool Mastery Max Skills derivative skill Farm Tool Summoning. He reached out and grabbed the summon tool. As he gripped it tightly, he spoke in a firm tone. He said that making an offering was the kind of thing one should do personally, not rely on someone else to perform. Saying that, he struck the demon's hand with full power, telling the demon that he would descend to the 18th level of hell. Feng's attack injured the demon, who let go of him. The demon looked shocked, saying this was impossible. He could not understand how the kid, who clearly had a simple farmer profession, managed to injure him. As Feng broke free from the demon's hand, he backed away. To fight back, he looked around and saw a fallen tool on the ground near that dead man. He reached forward quickly and grabbed the object, which looked like a lantern-type device glowing with purple light. Feng activated that lantern, and a huge blue beam of energy shot toward the demon. The beam struck the demon with overwhelming force. To defend, the demon gathered purple energy. A dark swirling sphere formed in front of him, with many purple tendrils stretching out like roots in the air. The impact caused a massive explosion of purple and blue energy. Dust filled the air. When the smoke began to clear, the demon stood again. His armor cracked, his expression filled with rage. But before that demon could attack, strange purple spinning shapes appeared in the air above Feng. Purple markings circled around him from every direction. The demon immediately recognized those shapes and, in frustration, said it was the array dancer's marking formation. That demon crouched low as purple energy swirled around him. He glared forward with sharp eyes and said that if he could not escape, he would simply possess Feng's body and leave. Purple energy wrapped around the demon's body as he charged at Feng with full speed, giving Feng no time to even react. Feng let out pained sounds as the demon entered his body. The swirling energy closed around his body, pulling him toward the dark figure. Inside Feng's mind, the demon smirked and told Feng that even though he had the lowest profession, his talent was still decent, and he should feel lucky to become his vessel. Hearing that, Feng laughed nervously. Blue energy circles moved around him as he spoke. He said that he had been training since childhood without skipping a single day, so if the demon wanted to take over his body, he would have to work a little harder. But the demon remained confident. His voice echoed again, saying that inferior was inferior, and his power was something Feng would never reach. And the next second, Feng fell to the ground. Purple chains of energy wrapped around him tightly. He looked down weakly and said it seemed like luck was not on his side this time. His hand slowly reached out toward a knife lying just within his reach. As his fingers stretched toward it, Feng grabbed it and raised the sharp knife in his hand while dark purple energy surrounded him. His eyes were firm as he told the demon that they should both go down together happily. Hearing that, the demon became alarmed. He tried to stop Feng, asking what he was doing, but the next second, Feng stabbed himself hard in the stomach. Blood burst out as he held the knife tightly. He shouted that even if they both perished together, he would never give up his body. Feng's vision started to fade. In his thoughts he spoke to his father, saying he did not want to go over there and get scolded. His body fell to the ground. His eyes were closed, and purple energy wrapped tightly around him. But suddenly, a glowing golden light formed from his chest. The light grew brighter and brighter, spreading around him. That demon stared at the glow with fear and confusion. He wondered what the dazzling light was and asked himself if Feng's magic power was erupting. The next second, a blinding golden light burst open in the sky. The demon below looked up at it with shock as the golden beams spread out in all directions like glowing branches. Then that light wrapped around the demon's body. He stepped back in fear. His voice shook as he shouted that this could not be happening. He shouted that it was impossible. But more golden strands tightened around him. They spun faster and faster, forming a thick cocoon of golden lines around his entire body. The cocoon glowed even brighter, twisting with great force. In the next moment, a violent blast erupted from inside it. Purple power and shattered pieces flew out as something inside was destroyed. At that time, a purple system window appeared in the darkness. It displayed a message congratulating Feng, saying he had acquired a new talent, inherited profession, necromancer. Then sometime later, Feng's eyes snapped open in shock while he was lying on the ground. He stared at his hands and his wounded clothes. With disbelief in his voice, he said he was still alive. Feng checked his body in confusion as he spoke. He said he could still control his own body, and wondered if the demon trying to possess him had failed. He sat on the ground with a calm face and opened his system status window. A glowing purple screen floated in front of him, and he read the information on it. Feng looked at the glowing screen with a serious expression as he read the details of his new abilities. His name was written on it along with his profession, Spirit Farm Master, Mutated/Unique. He looked at the screen with a calm and curious expression. Then he scrolled to another panel that showed the full list of his status information. His name was Lin Feng, profession, Spirit Farm Master, which was mutated and unique. He was level 1 with 300 strength, 300 constitution, 100 agility, 110 magic power, 100 spirit, and 300 luck points. His skills were rapid land clearing, efficient planting, rapid harvesting, yield increase, farm tool mastery at max level, undead affinity passive, transcendent growth basic, undead summoning basic, and soul extraction passive. Feng stared at the screen closely. His eyes widened as he realized that his level had reset to 1, but all his maxed out farmer attributes were still there. Looking closely, he found that his magic power had increased as well because of that demon's soul force. With this, he realized that once he leveled up again, his attributes could break past the old limits of the farmer class. But he looked annoyed as he read the list of new skills. Among them, he noticed the undead summoning. He muttered that he could actually summon undead, but he hoped it would not summon that guy. Feng activated his farming skill, and in his left hand green energy swirled around his fingers. In the next moment, Feng raised his right hand and used the other power he was feeling before. This time purple lightning-like energy wrapped around his fingers. He stared at it with shock, watching the power rise through the air. Then Feng combined both of those energies and saw green and purple energies mixing inside his hand. He slowly realized what was happening. The farmer's magic power was merging together with the undead magic power. His face turned tense. He closed his eyes for a moment as he understood that something inside him had changed. He saw his glowing profession chart filled with symbols. He saw a green calm chart, and then he saw another chart releasing violent purple lightning. His profession tree was forming new branches. With a worried look, he realized that his profession tree had split. He had not changed classes. He had gained an additional profession. Feng stared at it in disbelief. He recognized one of the symbols of that purple chart and understood what it meant. That demon who entered his body earlier was actually an awakener of a legendary inherited profession, necromancer. He looked at that demon's purple figure lying on the ground and wondered in disbelief if this guy was a necromancer. The profession tree continued glowing. Purple electricity ran across it. Feng looked at his own hand again. A swirling green-purple power pulsed inside his palm. He could feel that the power still did not belong to him. He became anxious. He knew that if he couldn't tame this energy and fully turn it into his own power, something dangerous would happen. His farmer profession would collapse, disappear, and his consciousness might be devoured by that demon again. Feng covered his face embarrassed. He glanced at the profession tree and thought that the yellow color on his own farming icons looked dirty and earthy. Feng stood inside a glowing purple magic circle. Purple runes floated around him as he raised his hand and activated the skill Undead Summoning. Right after that, purple energy cracked the ground as the space around him shook. Broken pieces of the ground floated into the air as purple lightning hit the necromancer and the human he killed before. The purple energy swirled wildly as something began to appear inside the circle. Two figures slowly formed from the purple light. One had a body shining like a pale blue phantom. He was Yue, level 1 undead sage. The second figure appeared glowing bright purple with sharp armor and long hair. He was He Xiao, level 1 undead wild hunt. Feng looked at them and realized it was really that human and the necromancer. Even though their levels had been reset, all their abilities were still preserved and they could level up again. After all that commotion, he knew the law enforcement squad was on the way, so he needed to leave quickly. He immediately turned to leave because he also understood that no one would believe an ordinary farmer could kill two extraordinary individuals. Instead, if anyone found out about his current situation, it could bring serious danger to him. So Feng walked away with his backpack. But he was determined and said that the urgent priority was to find a place that could give him protection, resources, and high-tier land. He wanted a place where he could test and control his dangerous new power and turn his dad's theories into reality. Then one day later, Feng went to his family farmland, which was clear and bright. Feng walked along the open fields looking troubled. He thought about how a full day had passed, yet the necromancer's influence on his profession still had not faded. But leaving that aside, he opened his laptop to watch the news. A man in a suit appeared on the finance channel. He greeted the audience and announced that the day marked the birthday of a veteran agricultural teacher. Back on the farmland, Feng inspected a young plant in his hand. Purple lightning wrapped around his fingers as he examined the sprout closely. He noticed that every crop affected by his new power was turning strange. Around him, the mutated plants grew unnaturally. Green vines thickened, stretching under a sky filled with purple energy. The stems twisted into complex shapes, forming net-like structures that shimmered under the sun. Soon, one plant swelled into a large cabbage-like bulb. Purple energy pulsed from within its leaves. The bulb shook and then burst open, releasing thick smoke. Suddenly, a long dark vine shot out and grabbed a small bird mid-flight. Sharp purple spikes rose from the plant as the bird struggled in the air. Feng looked at it in shock. His mouth hung open as he stared at the monstrous plant spreading across the field. He raised his voice in disbelief, wondering what he was even looking at. Panic crept into his face as he realized the danger. If people saw these strange creations, he feared they would mistake it for a demon invasion. Feng immediately grabbed a shovel and started digging, saying that he needed to dispose of the mutated crops as fast as possible. He stared at the cabbage he had just disposed of, and thought about how his new magic power had caused terrifying mutations in ordinary plants. He wondered if by guiding this power properly, he could use it to grow crops on purpose. Thinking about it, he believed that if he learned to control this power, he might create the special plant varieties his father had imagined but never succeeded in cultivating. He imagined growing high-value crops that could raise a person's profession level. While he was thinking all that, urgent news suddenly appeared on the television. A serious-looking news presenter announced that inherited profession holder necromancer He Xiao had started a rebellion the previous day and had killed Dean Yueye. The anchor stated that He Xiao's crimes were severe. He also said that anyone with information would be rewarded, and helping him in any way would be treated as a crime. Feng watched the screen quietly. He thought to himself that things had unfolded exactly as expected. He reminded himself that he must never let anyone find out he possessed the necromancer's undead power. He looked around at the equipment stacked against the wall and thought that he needed to give proper names to his undead servants so they could pass inspections. Otherwise there would be trouble. Suddenly an idea popped up in his mind, his eyes lighting up as if he had just come up with a clever idea. He said that he would simply call his undead servants farm servants, because his profession panel already listed him as a spirit farm master. To him it sounded completely normal for a farm master to have a few servants. Just as he was thinking, the news reporter announced that, in order to deal with growing demon pressure, the Extraordinary Academy was expanding its enrollment. The reporter explained that anyone who passed the assessment would receive resource support from the Academy, and would even be given private estates capable of producing high-tier crops along with special subsidies. The reporter added that enrolled students would be able to hire farmers to help them grow high-recovery crops. Hearing this, Feng thought that the Academy's land was safe, fertile, and well supported with resources. He realized that this was exactly what he needed right now. He thought about his own situation. His necromancer identity was a dangerous secret, like a ticking time bomb. But Spirit Farm Master, to everyone else that was just a harmless farmer. He told himself that he had to get into the academy no matter what. Then some days later, at the Extraordinary Academy Registration Plaza, inside the registration hall, a row of examiners in black suits sat behind a long desk. One of the men asked for the next applicant's information. He looked up and said in a flat tone that they needed the applicant's name, age, awakened profession, and level. Feng stepped forward. He carried his backpack and calmly stated that he was 18 years old and that his profession was Spirit Farm Master, Level 1. Hearing that, one of the examiners repeated the words Spirit Farm Master with confusion. He scanned the documents in his hand and frowned. He said he had never heard of that profession and assumed it was another non-combat job trying to sneak in. He told Feng to release his profession aura. Feng lifted his hand and a green aura formed around it, swirling like spiritual energy. The examiner stared at it with disdain. He leaned back unimpressed and called it the garbage aura of a farmer profession. He waved dismissively and told him not to waste his time, then shouted for the next applicant. Nearby students began laughing loudly. One mocked the name Spirit Farm Master, asking if Feng had made it up himself. Another joked that it was hilarious for a level 1 farmer to even think about applying. They told him to go back to farming. More voices joined in, saying that Instructor Li was right and that someone like Feng would only drag down the school's standards. They said they wouldn't even hire him to work their own fields. But Feng stood facing them without reacting. He looked toward Instructor Li and spoke steadily. He explained that his profession was a mutated profession. He asked the instructor to give him a chance. He added that his fundamentals were solid and that he would not disappoint. But the instructor grew angry and shouted that solid fundamentals meant nothing for someone who was only level 1. He said a level 1 person couldn't possibly have any real foundation. Then he ordered the security guards to throw Feng out. Hearing that, Feng stepped forward calmly and reminded the instructor of the rules. He said the recruitment notice clearly stated that all professionals were allowed to take the test. He warned the instructor to be careful, saying he might even report him. Feng then held up his phone. With a smug look, he pretended to call the supervision bureau and said there was a teacher refusing to let him take the academy exam. Hearing that, the instructor panicked. He rushed forward and grabbed the phone from Feng's hand. His face twisted in anger as he shouted at Feng. He threatened him, saying that if Feng dared to report him, he would make him regret it. He also said he didn't believe a level 1 farmer could ever pass the exam. Nearby students whispered to each other. Some said that even if Feng was a farmer-type profession, the instructor's attitude was too much. Others said Instructor Li's behavior seemed excessive. One of them mentioned hearing that the instructor failed a promotion exam and could only work at the admissions office now. Hearing them talking, the instructor shouted loudly at everyone. He told anyone who didn't want to take the test to get lost, his voice full of irritation as the crowd watched. Then sometime later, the group began walking behind the instructor. Feng followed among the other students. Soon they arrived at a huge building covered with giant twisted wooden roots. Many people stood outside it. The instructor looked back and spoke, telling Feng that he could still admit defeat now if he wanted. But Feng walked forward calmly and thanked the instructor for leading the way. The entrance was covered with wooden boards marked with warning signs. 2 glowing portals appeared on the ground, and Feng stepped toward them with the others. Inside the structure, Feng flew through the air, bouncing between the thick wooden roots. He managed to land on one of the roots and caught his balance. Feng narrowed his eyes and said that it was time to let the horned rabbits experience the terror of industrialized farming. He then sat down and pulled out a jar filled with orange powder. With a confident smile, he explained that this carrot essence powder was his newest creation. According to him, it could easily lure even level 20 mighty rabbits, so dealing with these low-level horned rabbits would be simple. He said it was a piece of cake. He then knelt on the ground, sprinkling the carrot essence powder carefully over the soil. A thin trail of powder spread out around him as he worked. Then immediately carrots grew on the ground. A few minutes later, a small pink horned rabbit appeared. It sat happily among the grass with several carrots lying in front of it, looking excited as it stared at the food. But suddenly, Feng's powerful undead, covered in dark purple energy, rushed forward. Their attack hit the rabbit instantly, knocking it away with a burst of lightning-like force. Feng stood before his 2 summoned warriors. One was dark and sharp with blue and black armor, the other wrapped in glowing purple energy. He told them that waiting for rabbits was too slow and instructed them to listen carefully. He ordered both of them to make sure no one else saw them and to kill every horned rabbit that had been lured nearby. He looked determined and said they should kill as many as possible. Right after that, the 2 undead warriors burst out with bright blue and purple energy, shooting forward through the giant wooden roots. The purple undead used its massive sword and cut down many horned rabbits in one slice. Meanwhile, many horned rabbits flew into the air, trapped inside glowing blue bubbles. The dark blue armored undead floated among them, controlling the swirling energy around the captured rabbits. And then, with a flick of his finger, he killed all of them. Feng watched them and whispered to himself that the 2 undead following him were still incredibly strong, even though they were only level 1. He felt he had really gotten lucky. But suddenly, a loud bell rang and a voice announced that time was up. Outside, Examiner Li in a black suit stood before the big tent and ordered all examinees to come out and hand in the rabbit horns they had collected. Students lined up to submit what they gathered. Examiner Li shouted at each person harshly. Someone who brought 2 horns failed. Someone with 3 also failed. Another person with none was told to get as far away as possible. Some students complained that rabbits were usually easy to find, wondering why they were so rare this time. Another student said that getting 4 horns was decent because many people didn't find even one and would have to wait for the next recruitment. Then Feng stepped forward. Examiner Li looked at him with annoyance and called him trash, saying he probably didn't have a single horn and should hand over whatever little he had. But instead of answering, Feng raised his hand, and a glowing green magic circle formed around his fingers as he opened his inventory with a confident smile on his face. The next moment, a huge wave of pink horned rabbits came crashing into the tent like a tidal flood. Dozens upon dozens of fluffy bodies piled up, burying the rude examiner under them until only his arms and legs stuck out. Other students stared in shock as the rabbits kept tumbling forward, filling the entire space. Feng stood calmly in the background, watching the chaos he had created. Examiner Li and the staff member beside him looked at those rabbits in shock. Feng smiled slightly and told them that he had a total of 500 horned rabbit horns. He politely asked if they wanted to count them. The examiner's face twisted in disbelief. He stuttered in panic and accused Feng of cheating, but suddenly, the teaching director appeared. He stepped forward with a stern expression and scolded the examiner, asking how someone his age could still bully a child. The examiner froze and nervously asked why the director was there. The director said that if he hadn't come, all of his pet rabbits would have been wiped out by people with no professional ethics. The director then looked at Feng and told him that he had passed the preliminary test. Hearing that, Feng bowed deeply toward him and thanked him for being fair. But when the director saw Feng's face, he got shocked. He stared closely at Feng and said that Feng gave him a familiar feeling and asked if Feng knew why. Hearing that, Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. A tiny bead of sweat slid down his cheek. He stayed silent, but his expression showed clear unease. He walked back as his thoughts surfaced. He wondered if he had been exposed. His face hardened with worry as he looked ahead, unsure of what the director had figured out. The teaching director stood in front of Feng with a calm expression. He looked down at Feng and asked what his relationship was with Professor Lin Xie. Hearing that, Feng's eyes shifted slightly. He sighed, thinking to himself that it seemed the director hadn't discovered his class ability. Feng then relaxed and calmly said that Lin Xie was his father, and asked if the director knew him. Hearing that, the director's expression softened. He leaned forward with interest and said that Feng was the son of an old friend. Judging from the situation, he assumed Feng was planning to enroll in the school. The director then asked if there were any difficulties and, as his uncle, offered to pull some strings for him. But before he could continue, a woman with long pink hair stepped forward. She wore glasses and a white dress. She coughed and told the director that everyone was watching. Hearing that, the director turned around and saw a group of students standing behind him, staring and whispering among themselves. The director muttered that he was only expressing his thoughts. He then looked back at Feng and said that he had some business to handle. He promised that once Feng enrolled, he would personally show him around the school. The director walked away, and the next second his body was surrounded by swirling smoke and he disappeared. Feng watched him leave, a bead of sweat trailing down his cheek as he wondered why the teaching director gave off such unreliable vibes. Then that pink-haired teacher stood in front of the gathered students. She raised both arms and announced that the students who passed the prelims should follow her. She then told the ones who didn't pass not to be discouraged, promising that there would be more chances next time. The scene then shifted to a large meeting room inside the Extraordinary Academy's solar branch. Several people in suits sat around a long table while a man at the front prepared a briefing. A man with long hair stood before a large display board filled with silhouettes and images. He explained that Dean Yueye and He Xiao had gone missing at the same time. He said Dean Yueye had likely discovered He Xiao's secret and had been spotted during the pursuit. He continued, saying the two eventually perished together, but there was still an unknown mastermind who had taken He Xiao's legacy talent. With growing excitement, he declared that if they found the person who took the undead talent, they would uncover the truth behind everything. He pointed at the display board and insisted this had to be the answer. Hearing him, another man grabbed his head in frustration. He told the excited man, named Tuka, that they understood he wanted to earn merit, but asked him to stop making brainless guesses. Hearing him, Tuka slammed the table. His voice shook with anger as he shouted that none of them believed him. He warned them to just wait, because he would definitely find the evidence. Across from him, the two people seated at the table stared back nervously, sweat dropping down their faces. As Tuka left the room in anger, a woman asked her companion if it wasn't bad to let Tuka leave like that, since he was connected to the Duke. Hearing that, the man turned to her in surprise. But suddenly the teaching director stepped forward through swirling white energy. He said it was better that the troublemaker was gone because the Solar Academy existed to train real elites, not to give out empty positions. The director then explained that a mission had been issued from above. Once He Xiao was found, he must be killed on sight. He asked if the two officers understood. The woman hesitated and asked what they should do if He Xiao was already dead. The director looked away and said that maybe He Xiao had changed his appearance. So anyone who used necromancer skills, he said coldly, would be wiped out completely. Meanwhile, in the mission hall of the Extraordinary Academy, many students gathered under the bright lights. A glowing blue portal floated behind the podium, casting light across the room as students chatted and waited. Then suddenly that pink-haired teacher came out of the portal and stood at the podium and began announcing the mission. She stated that the re-examination task required all new students to clear a level 5 special dungeon called the Magic Horned Beast Lair, located outside the city. She also announced that the time limit for the mission was only 3 hours. Hearing her, the crowd in front reacted with shock. Some students panicked, saying they were only level 4 or 5, wondering how they could possibly finish such a dungeon in such a short time. One boy asked if anyone could actually do something that difficult. Another said grinding down the final boss might be possible, but completing everything within 3 hours seemed too hard. The pink-haired instructor smiled calmly. She told them that they were not required to clear it solo. She explained that they were allowed to form parties, but each team could not exceed 5 members. After forming a group, they had to return and register their starting time. Hands immediately shot up throughout the hall. Some shouted that their team of 4 needed one strong frontline warrior. Others called out that they were elemental mages with explosive damage. A girl introduced herself as Zhou Nanliang and asked if any strong seniors would be willing to carry her. Among the lively crowd, Feng stood off to the side, carrying his backpack. He looked down at a glowing system screen in front of him, reading the mission details displayed on it. While Feng was standing quietly, suddenly a pair of red high-heeled boots stepped toward him. Feng lifted his head slightly, noticing someone approaching. A pink-haired girl with twin buns stood in front of him, smiling warmly. She introduced herself as a level 7 magic class student. She told him she had watched his prelims and saw how he managed to kill so many magic horned rabbits. She said he must be very amazing and politely asked if she could team up with him. Feng listened calmly. In his thoughts, he noted that a level 7 student was definitely strong enough to solo the dungeon. He thought that if he were still just a farmer class, he would happily accept such an invitation. But his necromancer abilities absolutely could not be exposed, so he needed to avoid teaming up. He rubbed the back of his head with a relaxed smile and told her he preferred acting alone, gently refusing her offer. Hearing that, the girl kept her pleasant expression and wished him a smooth clear. She then turned and walked away in her red heels. Feng also walked off in the opposite direction, ready to face the mission alone. He went to that pink-haired instructor and leaned over the counter. When she heard that he wanted to go alone, she told him that this dungeon's difficulty wasn't low, but Feng said it was fine and asked her to give him the mission directly. Next, she handed him a scroll. As she did, she guessed that he wanted to solo the dungeon for its special solo reward, the Black Bear Gallbladder. She explained that the reward was a huge boost for low-level students like him, but warned that he still needed to understand his limits. Feng accepted the scroll with a small smile and thanked her for the reminder. The scene then shifted outside the Magic Horned Beast Lair dungeon. A massive portal shaped with jagged bone-like structures swirled with bright blue energy. Several academy staff members stood guard in front of it. Feng walked toward them. One staff member stepped forward and asked where his teammates were, but Feng replied that it was just him. Hearing that, both staff members looked at him with concern. One of them told him that a level 5 dungeon was too dangerous for a single person and advised him to find teammates before entering. But Feng held the rolled mission scroll in his hand and looked straight ahead. He calmly told the examiners that the rules allowed a solo entry. The 2 staff members standing near the dungeon gate whispered to each other. One of them guessed that Feng probably wanted the solo reward, the Black Bear Gallbladder. The other said that Feng had guts, but he should first think about whether he had the strength for it. Left with no choice, they let him go. As the glowing entrance activated, one examiner looked at him again and softly wished him good luck. Inside the dungeon there was a huge cavern filled with countless round eggs of different colors, scattered across the rocky ground and piled between jagged walls. A path led deeper into the lair. Feng walked forward as the blue energy light of the dungeon entrance disappeared behind him. He stepped inside with a calm expression. Immediately, 2 lizard-like monsters with long tongues crawled toward him from the front. He looked at them quietly and thought to himself that level 3 and level 4 monsters were no threat to him now that he was level 6. Feng summoned his undead, who immediately rushed with flashes of blue and purple energy and killed those 2 lizard monsters. But suddenly, more monsters rushed toward him. He looked around at their growing numbers and sighed internally. The manual had warned that the dungeon contained many monsters, but seeing this amount in front of him felt like far too many. The Feng stared at a massive cave filled with countless glowing red eyes peeking through the darkness. Lizard monster eggs covered the floor and walls around him. He looked at the sight calmly and said that this was a perfect time to try the new summoning method. A bright surge of purple lightning burst around him as he raised his hand and activated his skill, Undead Summoning. The lightning twisted through the air as monstrous shapes began forming. Moments later, those 2 lizards who were killed by Feng's undead before turned into lizard undead and appeared before him. Their bodies glowed with blue flames, their forms flickering like shadows as they waited for orders. Standing confidently, Feng pointed forward and commanded them to charge. From afar, the undead rushed out like a storm. Blue and purple energy streaks filled the entire passage, shaking the surroundings. Behind Feng, his two humanoid undead stood on the rocks, watching the advance. Watching those lizard undeads, Feng realized that beast-type undead kept some traits from when they were alive. They were aggressive but had low intelligence and could only follow simple commands. Feng observed them quietly. He noted that they consumed less magic power than others, but he wondered if they could do small chores like carrying water as well as fighting. Feng then sent his humanoid undead too. Those humanoid undead rushed forward, leaving trails of blue and purple light behind them. Both moved with sharp, deadly energy. The purple undead took out his long swords and struck first, swinging his long sword through the air. Powerful purple lightning wrapped around him as he slashed at the flying creatures in front of him. His attack scattered feathers and light everywhere. The blue humanoid undead formed hand signs and cast a spell. Blue energy gathered around him as countless glowing projectiles shot forward like energy balls, trapping those flying bird-like monsters. Watching those humanoid undead, Feng realized that they had higher wisdom. They could use the skills they had when they were alive and fought with more flexibility. Feng smiled with his hands on his hips, thinking that in the future, he could let them handle chores like weeding and fertilizing the fields. By now, Feng's lizard undead had finished killing. Feng raised his hand and used his undead summon skill again. Sharp spear-like streams of magic shot outward as several lizard-shaped monsters' dead bodies blasted with necromancy energy. Suddenly, a bright system window appeared in front of him. It displayed a message saying he had leveled up to level 7. Now behind him, many lizard and bird undead emerged. Their bodies burned with blue flame and their eyes glowed sharply as they floated around him. Feng looked calm and simply said that the efficiency was not bad. Feng then walked forward through the tunnel and reached a large chamber. Feng was amazed to see that he had reached the boss room in just half an hour. Suddenly, a loud metallic crack echoed as thick chains snapped apart. The ground shook as a giant bear-like monster came out of that massive cave. Its eyes glowed white, and chains still hung from its body while it roared across the chamber. Feng looked at the boss with a sharp expression. He said that since this was the boss, it was perfect for testing overall combat power. He called for all his undead to come out. All of Feng's humanoid and beast undead appeared behind him. Energy swirled around all of them as they lined up at his command. Feng then issued his orders. He told Heishao to handle the frontal containment. He told Yueye to curse and weaken the boss. He instructed the other undead units to attack the boss's joints and its eyes. On his command, all of his undead charged at the giant bear monster standing in front of him. They continuously attacked across its fur as it struggled and roared. In front of it, Feng sat calmly on a mat, a small snack box and his backpack beside him as if he were having a quiet break while the battle raged. He watched the ongoing fight and noted that the coordination of his undead was getting smoother. He was eating grapes, and system notification points popped up saying his magic power had recovered by 666 points, and it kept increasing as he ate more and more grapes. Then Feng's purple undead lunged at the chained boss. The boss monster swung its claws, but it did no damage to the purple undead, and it got closer to the boss. The purple undead collected huge amounts of lightning energy in his hand and punched the boss monster. His punch was so powerful that the whole ground exploded with a huge explosion. It was a massive burst of energy that swallowed the monster in blinding light. Immediately, a system notification appeared in front of Feng, showing that he had leveled up again and became level 8. Just as the bear monster died, a pile of glowing reward pouches appeared on the ground, shining with warm golden light. Feng immediately crouched down and examined one of the rewards in his hand. It was a strange red organ floating above his palm. Looking at it, he frowned in disappointment. He commented that the reward only increased his constitution by 10 points. To him, that was useless, nowhere near the improvement he could get from the supercrops he grew himself. But suddenly another system notification popped in front of him. It stated that the system was calculating the dungeon rewards. It confirmed his current classes, Farmer and Necromancer, and would distribute rewards for both. Immediately, 2 golden chests emerged before him, glowing with brilliant light. Feng was shocked to see them and realized that the dungeon settlement had actually given him 2 sets of rewards. He wondered if it was because he had dual classes. Then a sudden idea flashed through his mind, and a confident smile formed on his face. He said that if dungeon settlements could give double rewards, then there might also be a way to manipulate the crops he planted to receive even more benefits. Then after clearing the dungeon, Feng left the dungeon. As he walked out, everyone there, all the hunters, were shocked to see him. One of them muttered in shock, asking if he had really finished the dungeon alone. Two of the hunters whispered among themselves, their voices filled with doubt. One shouted that it was impossible. Everyone knew how dangerous the inside of that cave was. There was no way he had cleared it alone. He claimed that Feng must have hidden inside just to save face and never gone deeper. Another hunter added that it didn't make sense, his clothes were spotless. There was no way someone that clean had fought through a swarm of magic beasts. But Feng didn't care what they said. He went to the mission center and handed over the mission scroll to that pink-haired teacher, saying he was there to hand in the mission. The pink-haired teacher checked the dungeon scroll in her hands, and a green confirmation mark appeared on the screen, confirming that he had completed the mission. Seeing that, the pink-haired teacher's eyes widened in shock. She couldn't believe that he had actually passed, and that he had done it completely solo. Fudge smiled softly. His expression remained composed, confident, and quietly satisfied with his achievement. Inside the academy's mission hall, the pink-haired instructor took the mission completion scroll from Feng. Her expression was calm yet serious as she spoke to Feng standing across from her. She said she would submit the scroll to the academic affairs office, but warned him that clearing a dungeon alone was still far too reckless. She added that if a freshman were to die in a dungeon right after entering the school, it would become a serious problem. Feng listened quietly, his usual composed smile returning. He nodded and replied respectfully that he understood and thanked her for the reminder. The instructor adjusted her glasses and smiled softly. She told him that the final instructor interview would soon begin in the academy auditorium and advised him to take some rest before then. Feng nodded again and turned away, walking down the bright hallway with his hands in his pockets. Behind the glass walls, a few upperclassmen noticed him leaving. They whispered among themselves, watching curiously as he disappeared around the corner. Seeing those upperclassmen watching Feng, the pink-haired instructor sighed lightly and pushed up her glasses again. She thought to herself that she hoped this experience would teach Feng a lesson. Being too bold or impulsive in the academy could easily lead to trouble. Outside, Feng walked through the academy's forest path. Sunlight streamed through the tall trees as a faint light barrier shimmered between the woods. Feng walked quietly through the forest path when he suddenly sensed something behind him. His eyes narrowed slightly as he realized that someone was following him. Behind the trees, a group of 3 boys hid awkwardly, each holding a cloth in front of themselves as they tried to stay concealed. Feng kept walking forward, lifting his hand casually as a faint purple magic circle appeared around his fingers. A little farther back, the 3 boys whispered nervously among themselves. One of them frowned and said that since Feng could clear a dungeon alone, his strength must not be simple. He worried they might mess up. Another one waved it off. He said that no matter how strong Feng was, he was still under level 10, so his strength had limits. The third added that Feng had just finished a dungeon, so his energy consumption must be high. None of them had seen him recover yet. Their confidence slowly returned. One of them smirked and said they would crush him with numbers. Another reminded the group how badly they wanted the demon bear gall that increased stamina by 10. When they saw Feng walking away, one of them urged the others to hurry and catch him. They shouted at him from behind, calling out, "Hey you farmer, stand still." Feng stopped and turned his head slightly. With a calm expression, he asked if they were shouting at him. The group stepped forward with aggressive confidence, surrounding him. One of them mocked him, asking if he wasn't afraid of bursting from taking so many rewards by himself. Another insisted he must have gotten lucky inside the dungeon and found something valuable by accident. He demanded that Feng hand over the demon bear gall and the skill scroll. All of them flared their combat energy, their bodies glowing with blue light. One boy pointed at him and warned that if he didn't act sensibly, they would show him the true power of a combat class. Meanwhile, Feng stood still, facing them quietly. Feng looked at the group surrounding him and asked calmly why, out of so many examinees, they had chosen him. One of the boys stepped forward, pointing at him with an exaggerated expression. He asked if Feng really didn't know the reason or if he was pretending. Another student explained that the exclusive reward for a solo dungeon clear, the demon bear gall, was a valuable item that added 10 stamina. He said that something so good was not something a farmer like him should be holding. Hearing that, Feng did a comparison in his mind of the demon bear gall, which increases stamina by 10, with his stamina watermelon, which also increases stamina by 10. Feng squinted slightly and wondered if something that added 10 stamina was really that amazing. He thought about the watermelons he grew every summer, which also added plus 10 stamina without needing to fight through a dungeon. Then he lifted his hand and took out the demon bear gall from his inventory. Red energy curled around his fingers as he showed the item in his palm. He asked if the thing they were talking about was this. Seeing that, the man with the short hair immediately lunged forward with an angry expression. He stretched out his hand toward Feng and shouted for him to give the item to him. But suddenly a fireball exploded between them the moment he reached out. A violent blast of fire and smoke burst outward, filling the area with heat and golden light. The shockwave pushed the short-haired man back as he stared at the spreading flames in surprise. In the next second, a pink-haired girl rushed in. She held her staff in front of Feng and glared at the troublemakers. She demanded to know what they were planning to do. She reminded them that private fighting was forbidden in the academy and warned them that they could be disqualified. The short-haired man raised his weapon and tried to explain. He insisted that the matter had nothing to do with the pink-haired girl and that it only concerned Feng behind her. But the girl stepped forward without hesitation. Her eyes narrowed as she said that if she couldn't stand what she saw, then it absolutely had something to do with her. She lifted her staff, flames swirling around her as she made her final threat. She told them to leave immediately, or she would report everything to the instructor and see who would suffer more. Hearing that, the man with the fierce grin looked straight ahead, his expression full of arrogance. He spoke with confidence, saying that reporting the matter would only work if she even got the chance, and since she insisted on protecting the farmer, they would deal with her as well. He raised his voice and shouted to his group. He ordered his brothers to attack quickly, telling them to finish the battle fast. Two of his men rushed forward together, each holding a weapon glowing with blue energy. They charged toward Feng and the pink-haired girl standing in front of him. As they came closer, Feng quietly observed the girl. He noted that she was currently a level 7 class user, which meant she should be quite strong. He wondered if she was capable of handling all these small fry by herself. The girl, however, glared forward with clear anger in her eyes. She said that their methods were truly dirty. Then she turned slightly and asked Feng beside her if he would like to join forces. But before she finished speaking, she spun around in surprise. Feng was already running away at full speed through the forest, leaving her behind without hesitation. As she watched him escape, Feng threw something toward her. It was the red glowing demon bear gall. She reacted instantly and caught the demon bear gall smoothly with one hand. Her eyes widened slightly as she stared at the item she now held. The red energy curled around her fingers. Feng raised his hand with a bright smile on his face. He thanked the pink-haired girl politely and said that the thing he gave her now belonged to her. Before the pink-haired girl could even react to what had just happened, those three men rushed toward her with furious expressions. Their bodies glowed with blue energy as they leapt forward. Seeing that, the pink-haired girl shouted loudly, wondering why everything had suddenly turned into her being robbed when she had just come to help Feng. The scene then shifted to a quiet room. It was a temporary independent restroom. Inside, Feng sat on a sofa with a towel around his neck. He took several scrolls out of his backpack and wondered why the skill scroll he got from the dungeon was useless to him. He paused for a moment. His eyes narrowed as an idea struck him, and he wondered if it could be like that. Feng then held the scroll between both hands. Green and purple mana surrounded it as he injected his energy into the scroll. That energy swirled around it like flames, and in the next second, a system window suddenly appeared, stating that he had realized a new skill called Special Cultivation. Another window explained the skill. It was a beginner-level special cultivation skill that allowed him to use mana and certain materials to strengthen undead summons. It said there was a chance to increase their level, their quality, or give them new skills. Seeing the system notification, Feng jumped in happiness, saying it really worked. He explained that the scroll required mana from both of his classes at the same time in order to activate. Feng then summoned all his undeads. The tall shadowy figure of the largest summon stood in front of Feng, its body wrapped in purple and blue lightning. Feng stood shirtless in front of them. He lifted his hand with confidence and told them that it was time to test the new skill. Green energy flickered around Feng's fingers as he focused. His expression stayed calm as if he already knew the result. The tallest summon, Hei Kui, was the first to react. Purple flames burst from its body as its power rose sharply, and a glowing message appeared beside it showing that it had advanced from level 6 to level 8. Next, the summon with the icy armor, Yu Ye, was covered in swirling blue energy. Its strength climbed rapidly, and it rose from level 6 to level 8 as well. The demon-horned bear followed soon after. Blue light wrapped around its heavy frame, and its level jumped from 7 to 9. Two smaller summons, the horned lizard and the horned eagle, glowed together in bright blue light. Their combined levels increased, rising from level 5 and 6 to level 7. Watching all of this, Feng tilted his head slightly. A small smile appeared on his face as he nodded in satisfaction. He said softly that it was not bad at all. He stood facing his newly empowered summons. Purple and blue energy stormed around their bodies. The huge figures of Hei Kui and Yu towered in front of him, both stronger than before as they waited for his next command. Watching them, Feng lowered his eyes, and a quiet thought formed in his mind. He said that the only bad thing was when he would be able to obtain new fields because he couldn't bring himself to ruin the fields at home just to experiment on new crops. Then sometime later, he walked out of his room wearing casual clothes and a backpack. He stepped through the doorway with his hands in his pockets, but as he was closing the door, suddenly that pink hair appeared and called out to him. She brought up the demon bear Gaul. Feng turned slightly, and lightly smiling, told her that the demon bear Gaul was hers. Hearing that, the pink-haired girl's eyes widened. She held a small package tightly against her chest and shouted that the item was very valuable. Hearing that, Feng stared at her with a tired expression, his eyes half open. He muttered that there was no need to treat such rotten material like a treasure, and after saying that, he left from there. The girl froze. She repeated his words in disbelief and asked if she had heard correctly. Rotten. Feng left the resting area and walked deeper into the forest where tall trees covered the area. He was very deep in the woods. He looked left and right and thought that there shouldn't be anyone around. After confirming that no one was around, Feng activated his skill and purple energy gathered around his hands. He wondered what effect the new skill had on crops. The purple energy spread toward two nearby plants, wrapping around them. The plants reacted as the power hit them, growing in some strange way. Feng looked at the plants with a confused face and commented that they looked no different from before when he used his skill on his farm, but suddenly, his eyes widened as he realized something was different. In the next instant, the plants exploded into a huge transformation. A monstrous flower burst upward with sharp teeth and vines rising high above him as purple energy shot around the forest. Feng's expression was filled with surprise as he looked at the plants in front of him, asking if these two crops could actually move. His eyes were wide and he seemed unable to believe that the crops could really move on their own. Elsewhere in the forest, another figure sprinted across the treetops with great speed. The spirit energy detector in his hand glowed and he shouted that the energy reading was getting closer. That man was Tuka, who landed on another high branch. He checked the readings again and said that his guess was right. There was the aura of a necromancer somewhere in the area. A moment later, Tuka reached the forest path. Just as he walked forward, he noticed Feng with a backpack passing by. Tuka suddenly stopped and turned around quickly, staring at Feng. Then he reached out and grabbed Feng by the shoulder, stopping him. With a suspicious look, he asked if Feng was a farmer because he looked like one judging his clothes. Feng leaned closer and asked Tuka if a farmer had provoked him. Tuka's face then shifted into a look of mild disgust, his eyebrows tightening as he examined Feng in silence. Then Tuka raised his voice calling Feng. Farmer demanded to know if he had seen a strange person appear nearby. Hearing that, Feng lightly touched his chin and answered that he actually had. Hearing this, Tuka leaned forward in excitement and urgently asked where the person was. Feng lifted his hand and pointed directly at Tuka standing in front, saying the strange person was right there. Hearing that, Tuka froze for a moment, then his expression turning red with anger. Flames rose behind him as he shouted, asking how dare Feng humiliate him. He angrily declared his status, an elite of Sunwheel Academy and the nephew of the Iron Lion Duke. His rage only grew stronger. He yelled that a lowly farmer dared to be rude to the nephew of a duke. Fire wrapped around his arm as he swung his fist forward, shouting that he would kill Feng. Tuka transformed into a wolfman, his body surrounded by violent green energy. He shouted that the lowly farmer would pay for his stupid words and actions. The green aura surged wildly around his body as rocks and debris were thrown into the air. Feng was pushed back by the impact. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and planted his feet firmly on the ground. Stones shattered and dust burst upward around him, but he remained standing. His expression was calm and his eyes were cold. He stated that the farmer Tuka looked down on could defeat him with one hand. Tuka laughed and lunged forward with glowing green energy swirling wildly around his body. His claws were raised as he charged straight toward Feng. He shouted for him to taste his attack. However, Feng's expression remained calm. As he noticed something strange, he thought that although he didn't know why the aconite from his field had changed after being corroded by undead magic, it had gained a paralytic effect. He said that the last time he tested it, he had been numb and stuck in bed for an entire day. He added that grinding the aconite into powder really worked as a narcotic. Tuka's face twisted as he inhaled the narcotic. Dark particles and green energy clung to his fur. Moments later, his eyes spun, stars circling above his head. His body swayed unsteadily, and his whole body started feeling dizzy. He looked down at his own body in panic and demanded to know what had been done to him, shouting angrily as he asked why his strength had suddenly disappeared. Feng stood calmly in the forest. He raised his fingers to his nose casually as he walked forward. With a calm expression, he said that it was just some common aconite powder from the fields. Then he leaned forward, green energy flowing around his arm. With a calm but sharp expression, he said that this was the kind of power farmers had. In the next moment, green streaks burst forward. The attack struck the beast directly, slamming into its body and overwhelming it before it could react. Later, the scene changed. The former elite Tuka hung helplessly from a tree, his hands tied above his head. His shirt lay discarded on the ground, and he was left wearing only his shorts. His body looked weak, and his eyes were dull. Not far away, Feng stood quietly and mocked him, saying that he could not even beat a farmer yet still dared to call himself an elite. As he turned to leave, Feng calmly told him to enjoy cooling off there for a while. He added that when someone eventually found him, he should consider it a lesson learned. Just then, an announcement echoed through the area, calling all candidates to gather in the auditorium for the instructor interviews. Standing in the forest, Feng paused. Realizing the interviews were starting, he muttered that he needed to hurry. The scene then shifted outside the Extraordinary Academy auditorium. Groups of candidates stood around, quietly whispering among themselves. As Feng walked forward calmly, voices followed him. Someone whispered that he was the one who had solo cleared the level 5 dungeon. Another voice replied that they heard he only ran away and leeched off women. Unmoved by the whispers around him, Feng continued walking toward the auditorium with an indifferent expression. Among the gathered candidates, someone spoke in a low voice, saying that compared to Shi Yan and Bogu, he was far worse. Another voice followed, saying that he might be strong compared to normal candidates, but as level 5 elites they already had the advantage. Nearby, a pink-haired girl stepped forward and handed something to Feng, telling him that it was his. Feng scratched the back of his head and smiled faintly. He leaned forward and told her to keep it, saying that it was really useless to him. Later, Feng walked through the crowd while eating casually. A notification appeared above him, showing temporary stamina +2 twice. Looking confused, he thought to himself that he truly did not understand why people treated that kind of thing like a treasure. Inside the auditorium, the scene was marked as the instructor interview site. Several instructors sat behind a long desk, watching quietly. A voice explained that during the interview instructors choose students, but students also choose instructors. It was said that students and instructors bring out the best in each other. The instructor then announced that he would call students by name to come forward. He called out the first name, Shi Yan. Shi Yan stood up among the seats and introduced himself. He said that his name was Shi Yan, and that he was a level 6 Earth-type warrior. He then spoke again, saying that this was his current ability. As he finished speaking, a large battle armor appeared, surrounded by glowing energy. One of the instructors leaned forward and spoke. He said that it was not bad and introduced himself as a level 44 Earth-type berserker. He then asked Shi Yan how about becoming his instructor. Shi Yan reacted immediately and said that he would be honored. After that, the instructor announced the next name and called Ying Wu forward. The instructor looked down at the list and called out the next name, saying it was Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood up from his seat and walked forward calmly, moving past the other candidates. As he stepped into the center, he introduced himself. He stated clearly that his name was Lin Feng and that he was a level 8 spirit farm master. As he spoke, green energy rose around his body, surrounding him as he stood there in silence. The two female instructors watched Lin Feng from their seats. The woman with pink hair commented that reaching level 8 at his age was very impressive. The woman beside her leaned closer and reminded her to look carefully, saying he was still just a farmer. Across the table, another instructor leaned against his colleague and spoke casually. He said that their extraordinary academy trained talent for the front lines, not ordinary people meant to be cannon fodder. But he also admitted that Lin Feng had performed very well in both the preliminary and second tests. The main examiner adjusted his monocle and looked at the others. He cleared his throat and suggested that since everyone had different opinions, they should run a combat ability assessment for Lin Feng. After hearing this, the instructors began giving their responses one by one. The man with long dark hair crossed his arms and said he agreed. The woman with pink hair smiled and said it worked for her. Another instructor leaned back casually and said he didn't mind at all. Lin Feng stepped forward as the examiner called out to him. Green energy swirled around his feet while the examiner asked if he was willing to take the combat test. The examiner added that their goal was to train people who could fight demons on the front lines, and without combat ability, things would be difficult. Lin Feng lowered his head slightly, thinking to himself. He said that his current combat strength wasn't very high, and he wanted to fight without exposing his necromancer abilities. Lin Feng lifted his head with a small smile and agreed. The scene then shifted to a large open space that had been temporarily marked inside the auditorium. Students and instructors stood around the edges, watching as Lin Feng walked to one side of the marked area. On the opposite side, a tall man waited for him. The instructor explained the rules with a wide grin. He said that the evaluation was simple. Lin Feng only needed to last 5 minutes under his attacks, and if he managed that, it would prove he had talent for combat. As the match began, bright golden energy burst out from the instructor's body. The force spread across the arena, shaking the air as powerful waves of pressure shot in every direction. Students nearby bent down under the weight of it. Some trembled as they struggled to stay balanced. One of them gasped, saying that this was the pressure of someone above level 40. Another said he could barely breathe. But when they looked toward Lin Feng, they saw him crouched lightly on the ground. His posture was steady, and his expression stayed calm. Someone watching said in surprise that Lin Feng looked completely fine. The instructor smiled proudly as he looked at Lin Feng. He told him that just for enduring the pressure, he had earned his respect. Then he opened his stance and said that Lin Feng should use all his power and attack with everything he had. Lin Feng lowered his body, steadying himself against the golden pressure. He thought to himself that the pressure from a level 44 fighter was intense, but he could still endure it for now. A glowing green orb formed in Lin Feng's hand as vines of nature energy swirled around him. He stretched his arm forward and called out for his servants to come out. Green light burst upward. As the shapes formed, Lin Feng realized something. By covering the undead in nature magic, he could hide their undead aura. The summoned figures rose wrapped in bright green vines and leaves, completely concealed by the nature energy surrounding them. Lin Feng stood beside the glowing green figure he had summoned. The large creature looked like a cabbage-shaped bear covered in swirling nature energy. As he watched it, he thought that no one would ever guess this cabbage-looking bear was actually an undead summon. The creature stepped forward, wrapped in bright green vines. Its body glowed strongly, making it look like a rare mutant beast. From the other side of the arena, the instructor narrowed his eyes in surprise. He said that this kind of dense nature magic looked like a rare mutated profession. A smile grew on the instructor's face. He raised his curved blades, lightning-like energy dancing around them. He called out to Lin Feng, saying it was interesting and telling him to come at him. The green cabbage-like bear rushed forward, its body wrapped in bright nature energy. Across from it, the instructor charged in with yellow flames swirling around his weapons. Both figures clashed in the open courtyard, their energies filling the space. Bright streaks of green and yellow flashed everywhere as the two forces collided. The instructor swung his blades with great force while the glowing creature pushed back with its nature power. In the next moment, the instructor went flying upward. His face twisted as he let out a loud scream and charged straight at the cabbage-like bear. Bright yellow sparks burst around the green creature as the instructor's attack struck it again and again. Even while taking heavy blows, the glowing cabbage-like bear stayed standing, its body shaking from the impact. One of the instructors watching from a distance looked surprised. He said that any normal summon would have disappeared by now, but this one was still holding on. The green creature then roared and rushed forward, pushing through the attacks. Yellow and green energy clashed wildly as it charged straight at the instructor, refusing to fall no matter how badly it was hit. One of the instructors looked at the battlefield with sweat running down his face. He asked calmly if old G was starting to get tired. Lin Feng stood nearby with a relaxed expression. He thought that his summons were undead, so they didn't feel pain or complain. He said that small injuries could be healed easily with a bit of magic. Old J watched Lin Feng and wiped away sweat. He admitted to himself that he originally wanted to show off in front of the students, but now he realized Lin Feng had real talent. He thought that he would need to get serious. Old G then looked directly at Lin Feng. He told him that he would compensate him for the destroyed summon, and asked him to watch closely. The instructor explained that normal summoner professions had to pay a price to make a contract with their summons. If the summon was destroyed, it disappeared, and the contract ended. The instructor activated a powerful skill. Golden energy exploded around him as the words Berserk skill Bloodthirst appeared. He rushed forward with overwhelming force and struck Lin Feng's green summon. The impact shattered the creature's body. Pieces of green energy scattered everywhere as the instructor stood in the center of the blast, holding his curved weapon. After the attack finished, the instructor stood proudly with his arms crossed. Golden flames wrapped around his entire body. He looked completely confident, satisfied with the result of his strike. The instructor looked at Lin Feng and spoke with a mocking smile. He said that losing a summon must hurt and told Lin Feng to go ahead and cry. He added that he liked straightforward, emotional students the most. Lin Feng stood behind him with one hand near his eye, pretending to wipe away a tear. But in the next moment, green energy slowly rose around him. His face turned calm and blank, showing no sadness at all. The instructor stared at Lin Feng in confusion. He wondered why the boy didn't look upset at all. He questioned if Lin Feng was so overwhelmed that he had gone past the point of showing emotion. Just then, green energy suddenly spread out from Lin Feng's body, stretching across the ground like long twisting shadows. The green energy then rose sharply, wrapping around the instructor. The vines and shapes tightened around him, lifting him slightly as he shouted in surprise. He complained loudly, asking how many summons Lin Feng actually had and accusing him of playing dirty. The atmosphere turned tense. A burst of golden energy exploded around the instructor. He destroyed the green energy wrapped around him and the force pushed him backward. He shouted in panic as the green power twisted violently through the air. A moment later, the examiner stepped forward and raised his hand. He calmly told them to stop. The instructor relaxed and Lin Feng stood off to the side, his ghostly blue summon fading beside him. The examiner then faced Lin Feng with a composed expression. He said that Lin Feng had proven himself and was now qualified to become a student of Extraordinary Academy. He continued speaking, explaining that all nature-type instructors were currently on rotation at the front lines, so for now there was no teacher available to guide him yet. Lin Feng looked calmly at the examiner, a faint glow of green energy still drifting around him. He asked what would happen to his cultivation resources. The examiner faced him and answered without hesitation. He said the academy would never shortchange any student's cultivation resources, and that Lin Feng would receive everything according to the standard. The man then adjusted his monocle and continued speaking. He explained that, because Lin Feng was an outstanding student in this exam, he was allowed to make one request to the academy. Lin Feng's expression shifted as he listened. A faint light flashed in his eyes, and he murmured that freedom and cultivation resources together were basically heaven. In the next moment his tone became cheerful. He stood before the examiner with a bright, almost childlike smile and said that he wanted a plot of land. The examiner froze. He stared at Lin Feng with a confused expression. With disbelief on his face, he asked if Lin Feng really didn't want rare resources, high-grade gear, or top-tier items and only wanted land. Lin Feng scratched the back of his head with a bright, carefree smile. He explained that his profession was spirit farm master and said that he couldn't be a master without land. With a cheerful expression, he asked the director if he agreed. The director sighed in defeat. He stood with his hands in his pockets and said there was a training wasteland on the west side of the city that had been unused for a long time. He told Lin Feng he could do whatever he wanted with it. He also added that if Lin Feng had other requests in the future, he could come find him. Lin Feng stood opposite him with his backpack, bowing slightly as he thanked the director. The director told Lin Feng to go rest in the back and called for the next student. The scene shifted to a view of the school courtyard, where groups of students were gathered below the tall buildings. Images of the sky flashed by, and then the view moved to a wooden door with a sign that read Principal's Office. Inside, a file was opened, showing Lin Feng's photo and his information. Sitting at the desk, the principal looked through the documents. He raised his eyes slightly and commented that Spirit Farm Master was quite an interesting profession. Just then, a woman with pink hair rushed into the principal's office and announced that she had an urgent report. The principal looked up from his desk and asked what it was. She handed him a document. The report stated that Tuka, a member of their investigation team who had been tracking He Xiao, had been brutally killed by a necromancer. She explained that the body was found close to the auditorium and they now suspected that a necromancer had already slipped into the academy. The scene shifted to the western city training wasteland. Lin Feng walked alone through a quiet forest path, holding a paper map in his hand. While studying the map, he muttered the location to himself and then smiled when he finally found the place marked on it. A moment later, green flames rose from his hand as the usage rights document activated. A glowing message appeared, stating that he now had permission to use 100 moments of training land in the west of Fengchuan City, granted by the Extraordinary Academy. Another message followed, explaining that a temporary lease agreement had been activated. The duration was 1 year, and a repulsion barrier had opened, allowing only the student Lin Feng to enter the area. Lin Feng touched his ear with a bored expression and complained that 1 year was really stingy. Then he added that most students would be heading to the front lines after a year anyway, so the limit made sense. Lin Feng raised his arms toward the sky with excitement. Purple energy swirled around him as he shouted that a full 100 moosh of land was his for at least a year. With joy on his face, he said that this finally felt worthy of the title Spirit Farm Master. A burst of purple light erupted around him. Lin Feng stood at the center of the glowing formation, pointing upward as the energy expanded across the wasteland. One by one, powerful spirit creatures appeared within the purple mist, towering shadow figures, glowing armored beings, and various small floating sprites. They surrounded Lin Feng, filling the sky with bright energy. Lin Feng looked at them with confidence and stretched out his hand. With a fierce smile, he pointed forward and declared that everything was ready. It was time to get to work. A dark, shadowy spirit released a violent burst of purple energy. The force shook the ground and sent rocks flying in all directions as the creature landed with immense power. Not far away, another summoned spirit, one made entirely of blue water, rose into the air. Waves erupted around it as it flew forward, controlling the water beneath it. On the field, a large fluffy beast with a horn rushed across the soil. Its body glowed with bright energy as it dashed ahead, followed by several small floating spirits carrying tools. The scene then shifted to Lin Feng relaxing under the sun. He lounged on a chair with sunglasses on, eating a slice of watermelon. With a satisfied smile, he commented that magic really did change life, and said the ancients hadn't lied. Lin Feng rested in the shade, calmly drinking from a straw. A small blue spirit tapped his shoulder to get his attention. Without changing his relaxed expression, he spoke softly and said that the land had been reclaimed. Hearing this, Lin Feng looked surprised. He turned around while holding a slice of watermelon and stared at his summons behind him. He said they were far more proactive than he expected. One of the undead let out a strange laugh, its glowing mouth curling in an eerie smile. Lin Feng looked at the ice-armored undead standing beside him. With a helpless sigh, he said that expecting undead to have their own consciousness might have been asking too much. Lin Feng finished eating and walked toward the doorway. Meanwhile, the ice-armored undead watched him leave. Its glowing eyes followed him quietly, its expression calm and unreadable. A faint smile slowly formed on its face, the cold blue light around its body flickering softly. Lin Feng walked along the narrow path beside the long row of green houses. A faint glow surrounded him as he placed his hand on the glass, checking on the crops inside. From above, the greenhouse roof revealed rows of planted soil beds. Lin Feng stood among the neatly arranged crops, looking up as soft blue light filtered through the glass. Different plants filled the space, some shaped like budding yellow lotuses, others like purple cabbages. Lines of text floated above them, showing their effects: permanent stamina +1, temporary speed +1, permanent attack +1, all labeled as not yet mature. Lin Feng looked at them with satisfaction. He said that other people had to gain strength through bitter and exhausting training, while he improved himself through crops, balanced nutrition, and a solid foundation. Lin Feng stood inside the greenhouse, turning his head to look at the glowing crops behind him. He said it was a shame that only his crops could produce these effects. He added that if his yield were larger and everyone could improve through these plants, then the demons would become nothing more than weak chickens. Lin Feng walked through the narrow glass corridor holding a shovel. Sunlight filtered through the greenhouse walls as he stopped and thought about his situation. He said he couldn't plant only special crops. He needed enough normal crops outside to hide them. Otherwise, the strange plants inside the greenhouse would be discovered too easily. He tightened his grip on the shovel and said it was time to get back to work. One day later, the scene returned to the greenhouse under a bright blue sky. Inside the soil, a cluster of round potatoes sat packed together as Lin Feng used his tool to dig them up. Lin Feng stood beside the field with a shovel in hand. He faced the shadowy summoned figures beside him and demonstrated the motion, telling them to dig like this and instructing them to watch carefully. The shadowy helpers immediately followed his example, shovels in hand, digging quickly in a neat line. Seeing their work, Lin Feng smiled. He said that ever since he got these helpers, the speed of planting vegetables had increased dramatically. But suddenly Lin Feng shouted in surprise, asking what his helper was doing. One of the shadowy undead creatures held a potato in its hands, taking a bite out of it. Lin Feng leaned forward with a confused expression. The undead creature froze, startled as it looked up at him, still holding the half-eaten potato. A glowing system window then appeared beside it, showing its status: Undead Lizard, Level 6, Temporary. Bone density temporarily increasing. Defense temporarily increasing. Lin Feng stared silently at the notification, looking down in thought. He thought that all of his undead lizards came from the dungeon and the only difference was that this particular one had eaten a potato. Lin Feng then raised his hand to his chin, thinking seriously. A burst of realization formed in his mind as he wondered if the original crop effects could also work on undead creatures. In the days that followed, Lin Feng continued running systematic experiments. He carefully recorded how different crops affected the undead he controlled. However, he was not aware that someone was watching his field. A shadowy figure with glowing red eyes stood in the darkness outside the farm, staring toward the sheds. Under the moonlight, he muttered to himself that the place looked bizarre. He noted that several structures weren't there the last time he had been spying on the area. He crouched forward and looked again, repeating that those things definitely hadn't existed before. Then his expression hardened. With a smirk, he drew a sharp blade and scoffed that a paper-thin wall like that would fall apart with a single slash. He paused after seeing something else inside. Only one person seemed to be there. That made him wonder if it was some sort of trap. He called the situation interesting. Meanwhile inside, Lin Feng lay relaxed in a hammock, unaware of the intruder who was now watching him from the shadows. As the intruder crept across the rooftop in the dark, moving closer to the greenhouse, suddenly the ground beneath him cracked. A sharp impact struck the edge of the roof, forcing him to jump back in surprise. He landed and sprinted forward, but more blows slammed into the concrete, sending chunks of rubble flying everywhere. The man dropped low, bracing himself as the ground shattered around him. A moment later, something burst upward from beneath the debris. A round creature with a glowing red stalk rose into view, its body swelling with energy as it pushed through the broken stone. The intruder glanced toward it, only to face a sudden explosion. Rubble and flames erupted outward as the creature launched an attack, forcing him to dash aside while the blast tore through the rooftop. The blue-haired intruder narrowed his eyes with a smug smile. He looked completely confident as he mocked the defenses around him, saying that this level of protection could never stop him. He charged forward and kicked through the round creatures blocking his path. As his foot struck them, red liquid splattered out, and more of the creatures burst open under the impact. Suddenly, his expression changed. Sweat formed on his face as he realized something was wrong. He gritted his teeth in panic and shouted in frustration. A moment later, a massive chain of explosions erupted beneath him. Bright yellow flames burst outward, scattering debris, and red burst through the air as the detonations consumed the entire area around him. As the blast faded, a strange green light rose from the darkness below. A glowing tree-like figure slowly appeared, its branches twisting like veins of light. The green glow spread across the space, and long streams of energy gathered around it. In the next moment, the figure began to change shape. The branches wrapped together, forming the outline of a woman made entirely of green light. Her hair flowed like living vines, moving with the energy surrounding her. The man burst through the smoke, cursing under his breath. He shouted in frustration, saying he wouldn't have come back a second time if it wasn't to gain the Grand Duke's trust. He lowered his body and charged forward through the thick dust. His face twisted in anger as he raised his blade. Blood marked his cheek, but his grip tightened. He growled that once he chopped the creature into pieces, he wanted to see if it could still explode. He swung down with full force, his body glowing with power. Blue energy trailed behind his movement as vines and explosions burst up from the ground beneath him. Then his expression changed. He stared ahead in shock as he noticed something strange. He realized the monsters carried traces of an undead aura. Confusion and alarm filled his face while purple light flickered beside him. He remembered that the elder had told him that on this scouting trip to Fenchuan City, his main mission was to find the necromancer Heishao. He explained that Heishao had disappeared right after their last contact, even though he had made a deal with their clan. But now, seeing traces of undead energy from here, he realized this location was actually Heishao's hiding place. Confusion crossed his face as he wondered why Heishao was hiding here and whether he had betrayed their clan. He continued walking forward with a knife in hand. Purple mist drifted around him as he muttered that Heishao had no shame when it came to his immortality techniques. Finally, he looked up toward the moonlit sky and decided he shouldn't stay in this place any longer. Finding Heishao was what mattered most, so he jumped away from the area. The next day, Lin Feng stepped out of the building with a hoe over his shoulder. He wiped his face and said that he had already catalyzed and fertilized most of the plots yesterday. He added that he only needed to take care of the remaining areas. But when he saw his field, his expression suddenly changed. Sweat ran down his face as he looked toward the distance in shock. He rushed forward and saw a collapsed greenhouse surrounded by broken rocks and shattered ground. Standing at the edge of the destruction, he stared at the ruins and shouted in disbelief that his greenhouse was gone. Just as he was worrying about his greenhouse, suddenly, a huge shadow crossed the bright sky as a black dragon flew overhead, its wings cutting through the sunlight. Lin Feng looked up from the ruined greenhouse, his expression tightening as he turned toward the sky. He let out a quiet sound of confusion as he stared upward. Moments later, the dragon descended, and two figures stood firmly on its back. One was tall with long black hair, and the other stood beside him with a calm posture. The dragon's red eyes glowed as it hovered above the ground. Lin Feng stepped forward, staring at them in disbelief. He wondered aloud why law enforcement officers had appeared here. The two law enforcement officers stood side by side, red energy swirling around their bodies. The man holding a folder looked at his device and reported that the magic detector showed the source of the magic aura was right here. The tall man beside him listened with a serious expression as the other wondered how a place that used to be a training wasteland had turned into something like this, questioning whether a demon might be hiding there. A small device floated in the air, displaying a message that the land had been leased. The officer with glasses read from his notes and said that although someone had already rented the land, they still couldn't rule out demon activity. He reminded his partner to stay cautious. The two law enforcement officers stood outside the barrier. One of them raised his hand and greeted Lin Feng inside, saying they were from the law enforcement team. Inside the barrier, Lin Feng looked confused and wondered why the law enforcement team had come here. The officer with glasses stepped forward holding his device. He explained that their instruments had detected a magic aura in the area and asked Lin Feng to open the barrier so they could inspect it. The two officers waited as the barrier glowed between them. The taller officer said they didn't know the exact situation yet. Lin Feng stared at them through the barrier and questioned how there could be magic aura on land he had only rented a few days ago. Meanwhile, outside, one of the officers grew impatient and complained that even getting a farmer to open a barrier took this long. The tall officer then spoke again, saying that Tuka had just been killed by demons, and now demonic energy had appeared here as well. Flames rose behind him as he stepped forward, his eyes glowing red. He looked toward the barrier and declared that, in his opinion, the man inside was clearly a demon spy. Inside the barrier, Lin Feng stayed silent, a drop of sweat running down his cheek as he watched them with a tense expression. Outside the barrier, Haru shouts at Lin Feng, ordering him to surrender. Lin Feng looks up calmly, his expression steady. Nearby, two law enforcement officers watch the situation. One of them says that Haru acted too impulsively. He adds that Tuka has just died, and now demonic energy has appeared here. Because of that, Lin Feng looks very suspicious. One of the men steps forward and speaks directly to Lin Feng. He tells him to cooperate with the investigation and asks him to open the barrier. Lin Feng looks to the side and thinks that he needs to find a way to make them leave. He then speaks calmly. He says that his profession is lowly and that no one has ever truly respected him. He explains that he only wanted to find a quiet place and work hard on his cultivation. But now even the law enforcement team wants to place suspicion on him. One of the men beside the captain looks at Lin Feng with hesitation. He touches the captain's shoulder and says that Lin Feng already looks very pitiful. Suddenly, the captain's expression changes. He loses his temper and explodes in anger, flames rising behind him as he charges forward. The captain clenches his fist and says that anyone can pretend to be pitiful. He suddenly rushes forward and throws a punch at Lin Feng with full force. The punch lands, creating a loud impact and sending waves of power through the air. Lin Feng staggers slightly, then reaches up and touches his cheek. A drop of sweat runs down his face. He realizes that this is bad. His body has been strengthened so much that the captain's punch did not even hurt him. Lin Feng narrows his eyes and thinks to himself that he will have to act a little to get out of this situation. Lin Feng falls to the ground and clutches his chest, acting weak. The captain stares at him in shock and says that he used so much strength in that strike. He cannot understand how Lin Feng is still alive and says that Lin Feng is very suspicious. Lin Feng looks up calmly and asks if they are trying to beat a confession out of him just to close the case quickly. Before the situation gets worse, another man steps forward and stops the captain. He tells Haru to calm down and look carefully. He points out that there is nature magic on Lin Feng's body, and demons hate anything related to nature, something even a child would know. The man with glasses helps Lin Feng up and tells him that they misunderstood him. He says that Lin Feng's nature magic is very pure and that they will explain everything clearly in their report. Lin Feng stands up and looks at him with gratitude. He says that the man is a good person and a truly upright official. The man answers calmly that it is just his duty. Nearby, the captain clenches his teeth in anger and glares at them. In the next moment, power explodes around him as he raises his hand again. Lightning-like energy flashes through the air as he prepares to move. Before anything can happen, the two officials move at the same time and step in front of Lin Feng, blocking the attack and stopping the captain from acting further. The captain stays silent, his teeth clenched, unable to say anything. After that, the law enforcement officers ride on their dragons and leave. Lin Feng watches them quietly. After a moment, he lowers his gaze and thinks to himself that this is troublesome. He realizes that just farming is not enough anymore, and that he will need enough strength to protect himself as well. Just then, golden light flickers in the air and the paper cranes slowly fade away. Lin Feng hears an order telling him to report to the academy training ground the next morning to take part in the freshman ability test and ranking battles. Attendance is mandatory. He walks forward quietly, his hands in his pockets. As he looks ahead, he lets out a soft sigh and wonders why it is so hard to live a peaceful life. Not far away, two figures stand together under a tree and watch him leave. One of them quietly remarks that Lin Feng's nature magic is incredibly pure and powerful. The woman looks at the man beside her and asks if the boy is really just a farmer. The man replies that he is not sure. He says the system shows the boy's registered profession as Spirit Farm Master. The man narrows his eyes and wonders if even the great level 50 nature archmage Vela is tempted. The woman says it sounds like a mutated profession. She also feels that the boy is hiding another secret. She adds that this display of nature magic alone is enough to clear him of any suspicion of working with demons, as demons could never fake such life energy because it disgusts them too much. The man agrees and says this should silence some people for now. He adds that the real show is still ahead. After that, green nature energy rises and spreads around them, and in the next moment they teleport away. Then the scene shifts to the extraordinary Academy freshman training ground, where many new students have gathered together. Some of them look confused and complain that the interviews are already finished and they have even chosen their instructors. They do not understand why there is another test. Others agree and say they thought classes would start right away. One student lowers his voice and says he has some insider information, but then laughs and refuses to tell anyone. Lin Feng stands quietly at the side, listening to their chatter without saying a word. His expression remains calm as he looks ahead, waiting for what will happen next. Just then, the pink-haired instructor steps forward and tells everyone to be quiet. She says she knows they all have many questions. She explains why the academy is holding an academy-wide entrance test after the instructor interviews. She says that yesterday urgent military news arrived from the front. Demon attacks have become stronger, and the fortress outside the third barrier is close to collapsing. She announces that the academy has received orders and must quickly send a group of fresh forces to support the front lines. The students react in shock. Some shout that they have just started school and ask why they are being sent to the front so soon. Others question whether they were not supposed to study and cultivate first. The instructor speaks coldly and says that when a nest is overturned, no egg survives. If the fortress falls, the demon army will march straight toward Fengchuan City. She asks if anyone really thinks they will still be able to cultivate safely then. She ends by saying that this is not a request but a conscription. In humanity's time of crisis, no one can stand aside. Meanwhile, a pink-haired student stands among the crowd with a young boy beside her. The boy looks up at her and tries to speak, calling her sister but hesitates. Not far away, Lin Feng stands quietly with his backpack on his shoulder. His expression is calm and he looks straight ahead without reacting to the noise around him. The pink-haired girl turns back to the boy and gently tells him that it is okay and not to worry. She glances in Lin Feng's direction, her cheeks slightly red, and quietly says that he is very outstanding. She wonders if he will be chosen in the draft. After that, the pink-haired instructor raises her voice and orders all freshmen to enter the training grounds and prepare for live combat testing. The crowd begins to move forward. Lin Feng walks with them, his hands in his pockets. He quietly thinks that as a farmer-type profession, he probably will not be sent to the front lines at a time like this. Soon the test begins. Lin Feng stands on the field, facing a female student holding a staff. She looks at him and calls him a spirit farm master. She says she has heard that he is good at dodging. The girl suddenly raises her staff and attacks. Flames burst out and rush toward Lin Feng as she shouts that he will turn to ash under her fire. The pillar of fire roars forward, but Lin Feng calmly steps aside. The flames miss him completely. Lin Feng looks at the attack without any panic. He says calmly that it is too slow and that her magic is not condensed enough. He adds that the fire could not even roast the sweet potatoes in his field. The girl frowns and begins chanting, speaking of a flame spirit sleeping at the end of the world. She raises her staff and says she will command it. Lin Feng watches her quietly without saying anything. Before her spell can finish, Lin Feng suddenly moves. Green light flashes around his arm as he strikes. He tells her calmly that her casting time is far too long. The blow lands. The girl cries out as she is sent flying backward, crashing into the ground. Green energy spreads across the arena as the dust settles. A voice announces the result of the match. Lin Feng is declared the winner. The results are displayed one after another. Lin Feng defeats opponent after opponent, and every match ends with his victory. Lin Feng scratches the back of his head and thinks that beating this many people should be enough. He feels that he can lose the next few matches on purpose. Just then, the black-haired woman steps forward and hands him something. Lin Feng looks up at her and politely thanks her. The woman smiles and tells him that with his talent and potential, he is more than qualified to aim for a much higher stage. Lin Feng looks slightly surprised and asks what she means by a higher stage. She explains that if he earns enough credits and passes the assessments, he can be promoted into the more advanced Sun Wheel Academy. The woman explains that the Advanced Academy has better cultivation techniques, stronger instructors, and even chances to obtain legendary weapons or powerful mounts. Lin Feng listens quietly, then calmly says that he appreciates the offer, but he does not really need any of that. The woman looks surprised and asks what he wants instead. Lin Feng smiles lightly and answers that he only wants a bigger and better piece of land so he can farm in peace. The woman looks at him and says that he misunderstood her. She explains that she meant his final goal, what he plans to do after finishing those fields. Lin Feng answers honestly. He says that he plans to farm even more land so more people can have land to work on. He wants everyone who wishes to farm to have fields. The woman smiles slightly and says that wanting more land means wanting to reclaim all the land. She calls him an ambitious child. Just then, the principal walks over and asks if Lin Feng is not already developing the wasteland in the west of the city. He asks if that is still not enough. Lin Feng laughs loudly and scratches his head. He says that when it comes to farming, the more land there is, the better. A new announcement appears, calling out the next match. The next match is Lin Feng versus Ailing. Lin Feng raises his hand slightly and smiles, saying that it is time to go. As he walks toward the arena, the principal watching him comments that the boy is very straightforward. Another voice calmly says that if the child wants something, they should just give it to him. Nearby, the principal asks the black-haired woman if she plans to take Lin Feng as a student. The woman looks at Lin Feng's back as he walks away and says that he is quite an interesting boy. The announcer calls out and tells them to prepare for battle. Ailing stands across from Lin Feng and says that she really did not expect to fight him. Her grip tightens as she says that she will give this match everything she has. Lin Feng looks at her calmly and gives a small smile. He speaks honestly and says that he cannot beat her and that he was originally planning to surrender. Ailing suddenly attacks and asks if he is insulting her. Lin Feng looks to the side and calmly questions her choice. He says that she went straight into her second phase at the start and asks if that is really how she wants to fight. Green vines burst out and wrap tightly around Ailing's body, trapping her movements. Ailing grits her teeth and swings her weapon, cutting through the vines as she struggles to break free. A woman with green eyes watching the fight looks shocked and says that a student below level 10 should not have magic this pure. The principal agrees, saying that the first time they saw it they were shocked as well. The woman with green eyes calmly says that even someone who has reached level 80 on the nature path does not have magic this pure. She says that this boy's future achievements have no limits. On the battlefield, Ailing releases a powerful attack, but Lin Feng stands calmly behind massive green vines that block everything. The two observers agree that talents like this are extremely rare. With the right teacher guiding him, his growth will be terrifying. After watching for a moment, the woman makes a firm decision. She says that she has decided to take him as her teacher. The principal looks at her and says that it would not be bad if she became Lin Feng's instructor. However, he suddenly pauses and says that she said it backwards. The woman looks at him seriously and says she did not misspeak. She explains that she wants to take Lin Feng as her teacher. The man turns to her in shock and asks if demons have burned her brain or something. The woman smiles calmly and replies that even if that were true, she still wants to become Lin Feng's disciple. At the Extraordinary Academy's freshman drill grounds, the arena explodes with movement. Lin Feng and Ailing clash in a whirlwind of blue energy. Their bodies spin through the air as the force of the attacks shakes the entire platform. Ailing charges at him with incredible speed, her weapon striking the ground hard enough to crack the stone. Lin Feng narrowly dodges, the air bursting around them. In the middle of the fight, Lin Feng stays calm. He thinks that he has already shown enough of his strength. He decides that he should pretend to be weak and then admit defeat. But then a voice echoes across the arena. It warns Lin Feng that if he keeps slacking off, the academy will take back the land in the west of the city and use it for something else. Hearing this, Lin Feng slowly turns his head and looks back. The one who said that was none other than the principal. Lin Feng's expression changes as a spark of blue light flashes in his eye. He refuses immediately. In his mind he shouts that they cannot take back his land, absolutely not. That land is everything to him. Ailing's eyes widen as she watches Lin Feng. She feels his aura shift completely. Before this moment he had only been defending calmly, letting her attacks come to him. But now she can tell he is finally starting to fight seriously. Green light bursts around Lin Feng as he moves his arm. Energy gathers at his palm like a swirling storm, glowing brighter and stronger with every passing second. His expression is focused and sharp. Across the arena, Ailing steps back. Flames burst from her body as she prepares her strongest spell. Fire wraps around her arms, her staff, and even her legs, rising higher and hotter as she begins chanting. She thrusts her weapon forward, and a massive ball of fire erupts from her magic. The fireball shoots across the battlefield with explosive speed, lighting up the entire arena and tearing into the ground as it travels toward Lin Feng. But before the fireball hits, Lin Feng rushes toward it without slowing down at all. His green energy splits the explosion apart, creating a path straight through the flames, shaking the arena and sending debris flying everywhere. Dust and flames rise in a huge explosion. Lin Feng leaps forward with power exploding from his body. Green light surrounds his fist as he jumps at Ai Ling. He shouts one line as he throws his punch, telling her to take his serious punch. His fist glowing with pure green energy drives forward toward Ai Ling with force great enough to shake the arena. Ai Ling's eyes widen in shock as her head jerks back from the blow. She gasps loudly, stunned by how strong the punch is. She shouts in disbelief, saying that the power he released is incredible. But right before hitting her, Lin Feng stops. He lands gracefully and smiles at her. His expression is calm and relaxed, as if the fight had never been difficult for him. He tells her softly that she let him win. In the audience, the students stare at him with their mouths open. One of them shouts that Lin Feng, the farmer, must have been hiding his true strength all along. Another student compares himself to Lin Feng and says that he is the one who looks like a farmer now. That woman with bright green eyes watches with excitement. She points out that Lin Feng's control over the power of nature is extremely rare. She says he commands it as easily as moving a finger, and that his mastery is close to the very origin of nature's power. Then Lin Feng stretches his hand toward Ai Ling as the announcement rings out clearly. The winner is Lin Feng. After the match ends, Ai Ling stands with Lin Feng's help, her cheeks flushed. She gently holds his hand and looks up at him with admiration. She tells him that he is strong and that she accepts her defeat completely. Lin Feng looks down at her calmly. He tells her that she is the one who is truly strong and that he only has a lot of physical strength, nothing more. After saying that, Lin Feng lets out a sigh of relief while sweating nervously. In his mind, he mutters that he almost had his land taken away, and that things were dangerously close. Suddenly the principal appears behind him in a cheerful tone. The principal pats Lin Feng proudly on the back and says that he did well, this is how he should be acting. Lin Feng bows his head slightly and thanks the principal for showing mercy during the evaluation. The principal waves his hand and tells him to keep working hard. He says he is looking forward to watching Lin Feng grow stronger. As the principal walks away, a mischievous smile forms on Lin Feng's face. In his mind, he grumbles that the old man dared to threaten him with his land. He quietly tells the principal to just wait. As Lin Feng walks away from the training grounds, he mutters under his breath with an annoyed expression. Behind him, that green-eyed woman walks toward a tree. As she moves, the warm evening light falls across the courtyard, and a gentle breeze rustles the leaves of a nearby tree. Lin Feng rubs the back of his neck, deep in thought. Behind him, the woman moves behind the tree, and suddenly there is an explosion of white fog. The next second, the woman comes out with a new appearance. She then approaches Lin Feng. She turned into a girl with long green hair. She wore a green dress and her bright green eyes sparkled with excitement. She stopped in front of Lin Feng, and with a cheerful smile she called out to him. She asked student Lin Feng to please guide her in her cultivation. Lin Feng froze for a moment. His hand rested on his chin and his eyes widened in confusion. He stared at her as if he had misheard. He asked her if she was okay and wondered out loud why a combat class student would ask a farmer like him for guidance. The girl quickly introduced herself. She said her name was Vera and that they had never met before. She explained that she had just watched his entire match. She spoke passionately. She said his use of natural mana was unbelievable, simple, perfect, and filled with life and strength. She admitted she had never seen anyone command the power of nature the way he did. Her bright eyes softened as she confessed something more personal. Vera said she had been stuck at her current cultivation realm for a long time. She believed that observing Lin Feng's path might give her the inspiration she needed. Hearing that, Lin Feng scratched the back of his head awkwardly. His eyes were wide and confused as he looked at the green-haired girl. He asked her if she was also a nature-type student. He explained that the nature-type instructors were still away on the battlefield and suggested she wait a little longer. He added honestly that he only knew how to farm. Vera held her hands together and spoke with seriousness. She said that the skilled were the true teachers. She did not expect him to formally accept her as a disciple. She only hoped to occasionally visit his fields to observe and learn. She bowed deeply toward him, almost pleading. She said even if she could only help with random small tasks, just being near his natural aura would be enough for her. She begged him to allow it. Lin Feng flinched and panicked internally, but in his mind he repeated that he couldn't let people know what he was growing in his fields. It was too dangerous, and it would be too easy for his secret to be exposed. He turned his head slightly and spoke with calm politeness. He apologized and said that, as a farmer, he had nothing he could teach her. He insisted that he only had a lot of physical strength and was not good at fighting. But before he could say more, the principal suddenly appeared beside him, placing an arm around his shoulder. The principal leaned in and whispered that since Vera was begging like this, Lin Feng should just agree. For his sake. Lin Feng stared at the principal in shock. The principal brought his mouth close to Lin Feng's ear and whispered a long string of censored words, clearly explaining something privately. Lin Feng slowly responded that whatever the principal had just said sounded not very good. His expression showed immediate hesitation and worry. After hearing the principal's whispered advice, Lin Feng's expression softened. He let out a small sigh and then agreed. He said that if things were like this, then it was settled. Hearing him, Vera's face lit up instantly. Her eyes sparkled with joy as she thanked him excitedly. She promised she would never disturb him and spoke his name with sincere gratitude. Unable to hold back her excitement, she suddenly rushed toward him and hugged his arm tightly. She asked in a stuttering voice if she could visit tomorrow, or no, even right now. Lin Feng looked to the side, embarrassed, but answered calmly. He said it depended on her, and explained that his land was on the west side of the city. Soon after, they arrived at the West City training wasteland, just outside his greenhouse. Vera, now in work-style clothes, moved around energetically. She asked if there was anything she could help with. Lin Feng watched her quietly and thought to himself that at least her attitude was very serious. But he also reminded himself that he could never let her see the crops growing inside his greenhouse. Trying to keep her busy, he pointed outward and told her to look around outside for now and get familiar with the place. He explained that he was currently giving some special attention to the newly bred seedlings. Vera turned her gaze toward the greenhouse. Her eyes widened slightly, as if sensing something unusual. A thought rose in her mind. These crops seemed extraordinary. She observed the fields in front of her and realized something shocking. She thought that the crops here had been nourished entirely by pure natural mana. These were high-grade plants, capable of giving temporary attribute boosts. As she stood there in awe, Lin Feng walked further into the greenhouse area, his back facing her, completely unaware of the amazement spreading across her face. Vera leaned forward slightly. A soft smile formed on her face as she looked at Lin Feng's plants and said that Lin Feng was making her more and more curious. Then, 1 hour later, Lin Feng returned. But Vera was still on the ground outside the greenhouse, carefully examining the soil and plants. Suddenly, her eyes widened. She lifted a small piece of soil to her face, staring at it in shock. Her expression tightened with disbelief, and she whispered that it was unbelievable. Lin Feng walked toward her from behind. He looked down at her calmly and asked if there was a problem. Vera stood up halfway and looked up at him, still stunned. She asked him whether the crops here were really grown using only this very ordinary soil. Lin Feng nodded and confirmed it. He said that yes, it was just normal soil. Vera looked even more confused. She asked again, making sure there was no mana crystal powder, no elemental loam. Lin Feng scratched the back of his head and gave her an easy smile. He explained that he had thought about using those fertilizers, but anything infused with mana was far too expensive. With the little money he had, there was no way he could afford them. Lin Feng pointed at a small wilted plant beside him. Its leaves were curled and dry under the sunlight. He calmly explained that these plants were probably malnourished. Vera looked at the weak crop, her green eyes narrowing in thought. A quiet inner voice rose in her mind. She noted that Lin Feng's natural mana was extremely powerful, far stronger than normal. If that was the case, she wondered if she could help him somehow. A moment later, she straightened her posture and spoke with a polite smile. She told Lin Feng that the school actually had a special rule. Students could exchange materials dropped in dungeons for certain items at the academy warehouse. Lin Feng immediately stepped closer, grabbing her shoulders in excitement. His face lit up with hope as he asked her if what she said was really true. Vera nodded and continued explaining. She gave an example. In Storm Academy's level 10 dungeon Gloom Forest, the final boss, the Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain, sometimes dropped an item called the Chieftain's Fang. She said that this fang could be exchanged for a bottle of Earth Pulse, a rare nurturing resource. She lowered her voice slightly and added that level 10 dungeons were very difficult. Usually they needed around 5 people to clear safely. Then she admitted that what she said was indeed true, but also mentioned that this regulation would soon be cancelled by the academy. Hearing that, Lin Feng's eyes lit up with excitement. A bold smile spread across his face as he clenched his hand into a fist. He said loudly that this was great, and announced that he was going right now. Vera watched him dash away with surprising speed, a hoe in his hand. As she looked at his back, she wondered quietly if only someone with such a pure and simple heart could create such pure natural mana. Soon after, Lin Feng arrived at a massive tree-like structure. At its base, a swirling blue-purple portal glowed brightly, the entrance to the level 10 dungeon, Gloom Forest. 2 academy supervisors stood guard in front of it. A group of students standing nearby noticed Lin Feng running toward the portal. One of them pointed at him in confusion. He asked why a farmer was coming here and guessed that Lin Feng must have gone to the wrong place. Another student laughed loudly, mocking the hoe in Lin Feng's hand and joking that he must want to dig up wild vegetables inside the dungeon. Someone recognized him. He said it was Lin Feng, the freshman, and remembered that he was only level 8. Shock spread among them as they wondered if Lin Feng was crazy for coming to a level 10 dungeon alone. Ignoring the comments, Lin Feng approached the supervisors respectfully. He handed them a form and said he wanted to apply for a solo entry into Gloom Forest. One supervisor took the paper and read it. His face tightened with concern. He explained that Lin Feng's level was too low and that entering the dungeon alone carried extremely high risk. Lin Feng held up the form with a bright smile on his face. He said that according to the academy regulations, any student of the academy had the right to apply for dungeon entry. He politely asked the supervisor to allow it. As he said that, Vera appeared behind him. The supervisor stared at her in shock. His eyes widened as he immediately recognized her. Before he could say more, Vera quickly stepped forward. She put her finger to her lips and told him to stay quiet, signaling him not to reveal anything. The supervisor then took a breath and corrected his posture. He acknowledged that the regulations were indeed true. He wished Lin Feng good luck and told him to act within his ability. He warned that if Lin Feng couldn't win against the dungeon monsters, he must retreat immediately. Then Lin Feng walked toward the entrance area. A group of older students watched him move forward. One of them frowned and asked if Lin Feng was actually an idiot. They whispered among themselves, saying he was nothing more than newly recruited cannon fodder. They insisted he couldn't compare to elite students like them. Another student looked toward the glowing dungeon portal and spoke with cold amusement. He said that it would be better if Lin Feng died inside. Having such a useless junior, he muttered, only brought embarrassment to their extraordinary academy. Then inside the level 10 dungeon, Gloom Forest, a pack of blue wolf-like monsters rushed forward. Their red eyes glowed fiercely as they lunged toward the intruder. Lin Feng stood calmly in front of them. He called out to his undead companions, telling Heiqi and Yu Ye to clear the way. He ordered the others to follow behind and push straight through so they could finish the dungeon quickly. A flash of bright blue light burst ahead. Heiqi, covered in glowing markings and swirling energy, charged into the monsters. His figure moved like lightning as he captured all the wolves in water bubbles. Behind him, Yue Ye appeared in dark armor, his body surrounded by a black aura. He swung his weapon fiercely as the wolves threw themselves at him, but none of them could slow him down. Soon their bodies fell to the ground. Lin Feng walked up to the corpses. Purple energy began to swirl around his hand as he used his necromancer undead summoning power. With a cold, steady voice, he commanded the fallen beasts to rise and become his warriors. A small glowing creature appeared beside him, its body shaped like a cute dog. A blue panel identified it as a kobold undead. Deeper inside the dungeon, the largest chamber opened before Lin Feng. A towering monster stood there, the Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain, level 12. The creature was massive, with long claws, sharp fangs and red streaks of energy running across its body. Lin Feng looked up at the boss monster without fear. He placed one hand in his pocket and spoke casually. He said this was the final boss, but it didn't seem like much. It looked like this dungeon wasn't anything special either. Lin Feng yawned lazily and told his undead team to go straight for the target, as if the final boss wasn't worth his effort. Ahead of him, the massive Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain raised its glowing weapon high into the air. The boss monster let out a furious roar as it swung the blade downward with full force. But before the attack could land, Heiqi, covered in black and purple flames, charged in. His body glowed with dark patterns as he struck the monster head-on. Purple lightning-like energy burst from his attack. Heiqi slammed into the Kobold Chieftain with overwhelming strength. The impact created a huge purple explosion. The force blasted through the dungeon chamber, sending shockwaves in every direction. The ground cracked, stones flew, and the air shook as the explosion blew the chieftain backward. A bright blue shockwave followed, sweeping across the entire battlefield and kicking up debris. A system panel appeared above the scene. It stated that the Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain had been defeated. Lin Feng gained experience and his level increased to 9. The panel also showed that he had obtained one item, Chieftain's Fang. Below the notification, the chieftain's body lay motionless on the ground, surrounded by glowing drops of loot. Then another system window appeared. It stated that a summonable undead unit had been detected, but the level requirement was too low. It also said that Lin Feng could not convert the Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain into an undead summon. Another blue system panel appeared. It displayed the progress of Death F2A glitch, showing that the progress bar had reached 10%. Lin Feng looked at the notification with a calm expression. He quietly concluded that he still could not summon monsters stronger than his own level. He said it was a pity that the boss could not be revived as an undead, but he noted that his goal for this dungeon had already been completed. The chieftain's fang began to glow with a strange blue and black energy, as if reacting to his system. Lin Feng said that since he had obtained the fang, he would go back to exchange it for fertilizer. After that, he turned around and walked toward the swirling blue portal behind him. His figure stepped into the spinning light as he left the dungeon. Outside the entrance of the level 10 dungeon, Gloom Forest, a group of people waited near the glowing portal, standing on the sandy ground as Lin Feng returned from inside. At the Academy's exchange station, an officer called Vera Lord and asked her if they really had to follow the rules and exchange the item for Lin Feng. He explained that the front lines were in an emergency and that their combat class resources had already been distributed. But Vera calmly reassured him. She said it wasn't a combat resource at all, it was just soil fertilizer for nature-type classes. Hearing that, the officer in the suit confirmed that they had plenty of that in stock. As he spoke, a system window appeared. It showed the updated dungeon record for Gloom Forest. It stated that the solo first clear had been achieved by Lin Feng, and his evaluation was SSS. He received the special reward, 1 heroic spirit fragment. Just as the message appeared, Lin Feng stepped through the glowing portal with a relaxed expression, as if he had just taken a walk instead of clearing a dungeon alone. Nearby students stared in shock. One girl shouted that the heroic spirit fragment was a rare treasure that could strengthen someone's soul origin and increase their class potential. She could not believe he had obtained such a legendary reward. Several boys erupted in anger. One accused Lin Feng of cheating. Another insisted that he must have used illegal items or abused a dungeon bug. More voices joined the crowd. They demanded a strict investigation and wanted all his rewards taken back, especially the heroic spirit fragment. Others shouted saying he didn't deserve it. Standing behind them, Vera touched her lips with a thoughtful smile. She softly admitted that she had expected Lin Feng to fight through the dungeon at least a few times. She hadn't imagined he would clear it in a single attempt. All the students and instructors surrounded Lin Feng, deciding to confront him directly. Lin Feng looked at the angry crowd surrounding him. With a tired expression, he asked who he had managed to offend this time. At the entrance of the level 10 dungeon, Gloom Forest, Lin Feng stood surrounded by several students who watched him with dark, hostile expressions. Their faces were tense, clearly still upset about his earlier dungeon clear. Lin Feng approached the instructor calmly. He held the chieftain's fang in his hand and explained that, according to school rules, he was here to exchange it for resources. Before the instructor could answer, one of the angry students stepped forward. He shouted that Lin Feng's rewards were obtained through cheating and should be confiscated. The instructor, however, remained composed. He raised a finger and stated firmly that the rewards came from the dungeon itself, and the academy had no authority to take them away. Another student then stepped out from the group. With a confident expression, he announced that he was willing to challenge Lin Feng in a resource wager. Lin Feng glanced at him, puzzled. He asked what a resource wager was. A student explained that it was essentially a dungeon speedrun competition. With teachers supervising both sides, the two challengers would enter the dungeon separately and see who cleared it faster. The winner would take all rewards from both participants, while the loser would lose everything. The explanation caused murmurs among the surrounding students. The instructor turned to Lin Feng and asked if he was willing to accept the wager and bet against the challenger. Lin Feng shook his head lightly. With a bored expression, he said there was no benefit in doing so and the whole thing sounded dull to him. The instructor looked surprised and unsure how to respond, while the students behind the challenger stared with frustration, clearly expecting Lin Feng to accept. The student wearing a headband looked angry and was sweating. He clenched his teeth as he spoke. He announced loudly that, in that case, what if he added a blueprint for the lamp of nature? Hearing that, Vera got close to Lin Feng and told him that he must get that lamp of nature blueprint. She then explained what the blueprint was. She said the lamp of nature was a special growth-type magic tool that only the nature department could use. She said that a blueprint could only be used to make one lamp, so it was very rare. She continued explaining that its effects included shortening the crop growth cycle with no side effects. The headband student smirked and leaned slightly toward Lin Feng. With a mocking smile, he asked if Lin Feng was done asking and how he felt about the proposal, and whether he wanted to bet. At the same time, the student secretly held his phone behind his back. Messages appeared on the screen. That student sent a message to someone named Senior Huru. The moment Lin Feng came out of the dungeon, that Senior Huru told the student to find a way to stall Lin Feng, but the student asked Senior Huru what if Lin Feng ignored him. Senior Huru then told the student to bet resources against Lin Feng, asking if he didn't have a lamp of nature blueprint. The student replied that it was the foundation of their family's rise, but in the end, he agreed and sent a message saying that he was fine with it. Meanwhile, Lin Feng thought that his necromancer powers must not be exposed, but if there was only one supervising teacher, hiding his abilities should not be too difficult. His eyes sharpened with determination as he decided that this lamp of nature, he would take it. Lin Feng smiled confidently, he looked straight ahead and spoke with a slight grin, saying that he accepted. Hearing that, the rival student laughed loudly. He raised his chin with arrogance and declared that with the teacher supervising he would expose Lin Feng's secrets immediately. Lin Feng stood a short distance away, hands in his pockets, appearing relaxed. The scene shifted to the swirling blue portal of the level 10 dungeon, Gloom Forest. Light spun inside like a vortex. Inside the dungeon, Lin Feng stood beside the supervising teacher. The teacher turned and asked how Lin Feng managed to clear the dungeon so quickly. Lin Feng lowered one hand behind his neck, smiling confidently again. He told the teacher that he would show his strength. Green light suddenly burst around him. Powerful energy swirled in his hand as Lin Feng extended it forward. His expression sharpened as he called out for his farmhands to come forth. The green magic circles continued expanding, filling the surroundings with bright swirling light as his summons began to appear. A bright green light burst around Lin Feng as swirling energy gathered above him. From the glow, his undead covered with earth energy formed, towering behind him like a giant guardian. Green waves spun across the area as Lin Feng stood calmly beneath the summoning circle. The supervising teacher stared at the scene in shock. Sweat slid down his face as he whispered to himself. He thought the summoning was unbelievably fast and the troops Lin Feng called out looked very strong. Lin Feng walked forward with confidence and the teacher followed him, still watching the green light. The teacher thought that this would be his best chance to observe what ability Lin Feng had used to clear the dungeon alone. Lin Feng suddenly raised his hand. His eyes sharpened, and his voice rang out clearly. He ordered his summoned troops to attack with full force. At the same time, a pack of monsters rushed forward from the darkness. Their glowing red eyes and open jaws showed their rage as they charged straight at the summoning. But Lin Feng's summoned undead reacted instantly. The undead beast covered in plant energy swung forward and slammed into the monsters. Its glowing body crushed through the pack, pushing them back with overwhelming force. Bright green explosions filled the entire scene. Countless blasts of glowing green energy burst outward again and again, shaking the air. The undead bear moved through the light, its hands pushing out powerful attacks. Every strike created another sharp flash, lighting up the dungeon with green sparks. Then He-Chi walked into the swirling energy. Its face was expressionless under the hood, glowing faintly with green lines. He-Chi raised 2 fingers and magic circles formed around its palms, gathering even more energy. A series of green bubbles erupted all at once. The attacks struck the incoming enemies and shattered them instantly. The sound effects echoed through the forest as everything burst apart into pieces. He-Chi didn't stop there. It raised both hands and released a wave of powerful green lightning. Its attack shot forward like a beam, smashing into the ground ahead. Rocks flew into the air and the ground cracked under the impact. Pieces of stone scattered everywhere as the blast landed with tremendous force. The teacher stood frozen, his eyes wide and his mouth slightly open. He looked shocked as he watched the scene before him. He muttered to himself that it had taken less than a minute for Lin Feng to completely wipe out a kobold patrol squad of the same level. Cold sweat slid down the teacher's face. He stared at Lin Feng's power, unable to believe what he had just witnessed. In his mind, he wondered if this terrifying strength came from some special class, because the power felt far too overwhelming for an ordinary student. Ahead of him, Lin Feng stood calmly in front of a pile of shattered glowing rocks, the remains of the defeated kobolds. Lin Feng turned slightly and spoke in a relaxed tone. He told the teacher that the kobold patrol squad had been cleared, and now he was preparing to clear the boss room next. Hearing that, the teacher's expression stiffened again. He almost couldn't speak as he followed Lin Feng with his eyes. Suddenly, dark energy gathered in front of Lin Feng. A swirling purple and blue vortex began to open before him. Inside the twisting tunnel of the portal, something moved. A moment later, a dark figure shot out of the vortex at high speed. It was a large kobold warrior, its fur standing wildly and its eyes glowing bright red. Its mouth opened wide as it roared, revealing sharp teeth. Red and pink energy flared around its body as it lunged forward with full force. The massive kobold leaped straight toward Lin Feng, its claws extended and its body filled with killing intent. Lin Feng stood at the front and gave orders with a calm but firm voice. He told the undead bear to raise its shield and move forward. He said everyone else should follow behind. He warned that if any kobolds tried to attack from the sides, they must strike back hard. The undead bear raised its shield, and a bright green explosion burst out from it. Green energy spread everywhere as Lin Feng's undead bear rushed forward. The kobold warrior with glowing red eyes leaped out of the shadows. It roared fiercely and charged straight at the green figure standing in front of Lin Feng. Little did it know that this was Lin Feng's warrior undead, Yueye. Yueye moved quickly. Its body flashed with swirling light as it prepared to attack. It swung its arm and bright green power shot forward. Its punch landed directly on the chest of the giant kobold. The energy formed a wide circular blast that pushed the monster backward with great force. The impact sent the kobold flying backward. Waves of energy spread across the ground, shaking the stones and blowing dust into the air. The teacher stared wide-eyed, his face filled with shock as sweat rolled down his cheek. He shouted that someone with such amazing war potential had to be reported to the principal immediately. Then green light spiraled across the battlefield as Lin Feng stood at the center of the glowing vortex and called back all his summons. The teacher slowly walked forward, stunned by the sight in front of him. The monster's huge body lay lifeless on the ground, completely immobilized. Lin Feng stood calmly beneath it, surrounded by swirling green light. From behind, the teacher stood on a large rock, looking up at Lin Feng, who towered above him in the middle of the shattered battlefield. Lin Feng turned his head with a confident smile. He asked the teacher if he had finally proven himself. The teacher replied without hesitation, telling him that without a doubt, student Lin Feng had proven himself. Later, the two of them walked side by side across the battlefield's broken ground. Lin Feng had his hands in his pockets while the teacher glanced at him from the side. The teacher then asked if student Lin Feng wasn't going out. Lin Feng said the dungeon's scenery was nice and he wanted to walk around a bit longer. Hearing that, the teacher prepared to leave through the glowing portal. But before leaving, the teacher reminded him that the dungeon would reset 30 minutes after being cleared and told him to watch the time before stepping out through the portal. After the teacher left, Lin Feng walked toward the huge fallen boss lying on the stone floor. The giant beast's body was motionless. Lin Feng looked down at it and muttered that earlier, his level had not been high enough. He clenched his fist and wondered if things would be different this time. Then he stretched out his hand toward the corpse and used his necromancer summon power. Immediately, dark purple energy burst from the ground. Lightning-like arcs wrapped around Lin Feng's arm as he knelt beside the beast. His eyes were steady and confident as he repeated the command, "Arise." A purple silhouette began forming, rising from the creature's corpse. The shape slowly became clear. Glowing eyes, sharp fangs, and a huge beastly outline made of pure shadow and purple light. The monster's shadow form towered over Lin Feng, its presence powerful and overwhelming. The giant beast stared down at Lin Feng with glowing, violent eyes. Lin Feng stood straight with one hand in his pocket, looking up at the newly summoned creature without fear. Sometime later, at the dungeon entrance, soft blue light shone on the ground as footsteps slowly approached. Lin Feng walked out from the glowing portal, his hands casually in his pockets. The swirling gate behind him flashed with bright blue and purple waves. Outside, several students were gathered. One boy pointed in surprise and said that the fierce guy had finally come out. Another student looked worried and wondered if Lin Feng still held a grudge because he had jeered at him earlier. A group whispered nervously, deciding that they should leave together. Then the official standing beside Vera spoke with a serious voice, saying that in the name of the extraordinary, Lin Feng had proven himself. He then handed Lin Feng a small bag and a scroll. He said these were the rewards and compensation that rightfully belonged to him. Lin Feng raised his hands to receive them, silent but composed. After taking his rewards, Lin Feng looked around. His expression was calm and focused. Behind him, Vera stared at him in confusion. Vera got near Lin Feng with a bright smile and told him that the troublemaker from before had run away. She explained that after the administrator came out to give his testimony, that student realized he was in the wrong. He immediately dropped the items he had taken and escaped. Lin Feng listened quietly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the rewards he had just received. A small smile appeared on his face. Holding the container proudly, he said with satisfaction that it was fertilizer and that today's trip had given him a full harvest. Lin Feng happily accepted the reward, grinning widely with delight. Behind him, the administrator secretly gave Vera something. He told Vera that he thought she might need the recording stone, the stone that captured Lin Feng's battle inside the dungeon. Then the scene suddenly shifted to a fist slamming hard into a punching bag. A photo of Lin Feng had been taped to the surface, and the punch landed directly on his face in the picture. It was inside Sunwheel Academy, in Hiru's room. Hiru continued to strike the bag angrily. His muscles tensed as he shouted in frustration. He cried out that Lin Feng, just a lowly farmer, had humiliated him again and again. Breathing heavily, Hiru finally stopped and sat down. He rubbed his forehead with a troubled expression. He admitted that using force wouldn't work, and even the Academy's own rules couldn't punish Lin Feng. After a long moment, he muttered to himself that he would need to use another method. Haru narrowed his eyes sharply. His expression hardened as he muttered to himself, saying that Lin Feng was only showing off because he relied on a bit of nature magic and summons. In that case, he held out a sealed envelope. His voice turned firm as he ordered his subordinate to immediately send the letter to the front lines, addressed to his uncle, the Count. He added another command. He ordered that the mentors from the nature department, who were currently on rotation at the battlefield, must return to the academy as soon as possible. Hearing that, nearby his subordinate, the same student who had just challenged Lin Feng, looked surprised as he held the envelope. He asked if Haru was planning to use the nature department mentors to suppress Lin Feng. Haru crossed his arms confidently. He smirked as he explained that the old mentors valued the purity and rules of nature magic above everything else. He said they would never tolerate anyone breaking those principles. With a cold glint in his eyes, he added that letting those mentors deal with Lin Feng would be the perfect solution. He wanted to see whether Lin Feng could still act so arrogantly once they intervened. At the same time, inside Vera's room at the Extraordinary Academy, Vera was lying lazily on her bed. She wore a loose white shirt, her long hair falling around her shoulders. As she watched the recording crystal floating in the air, Vera suddenly sat up a little. Her eyes widened with surprise. She muttered to herself that the Lin Feng in the recording was simply a monster. His understanding of nature's power was so deep that it now looked completely instinctive to him. Even she, a top instructor, felt shocked. Vera pushed herself upright, her expression turning serious. She said that tomorrow she would write a letter, then quickly changed her mind. No, she needed to write it right now. Those old mentors out on the battlefield had to be notified immediately. They had to return at once. She reached for a pen and paper, quickly preparing a message. A small owl-like messenger creature appeared beside her, holding the sealed letter in its beak. She sent it flying out of the window with a soft command, watching it take off into the bright sky. Vera looked outside with a firm expression. She muttered that if those old geezers didn't return soon, their lifetime achievement awards would simply fly away. On the other hand, for several days in a row, Lin Feng stayed inside the dungeon without leaving. Deep inside the cave, he defeated the giant wolf monster with glowing red eyes again and again. The wolf monster lowered its head in frustration, but it couldn't do anything against Lin Feng. Soon after, a ranking screen appeared. Lin Feng's time was 10 minutes and 28 seconds, taking first place. Below him, several other times showed second, third, and more. All of them also belonged to Lin Feng. He had beaten the dungeon again and again, each run only a few seconds slower or faster. Outside the dungeon, other students watched him in shock and disbelief. One girl complained that Lin Feng cleared the dungeon solo and still moved so fast, as if the place was his own backyard. Another student asked how many times he had run the dungeon that day. Someone answered lazily that they didn't even bother counting anymore. Another student sighed and said it was boring to watch Lin Feng endlessly grind dungeons. He said watching other people farm was more fun. A moment later, Lin Feng walked up to Instructor Chen, holding a box full of sharp wolf fangs. He smiled and said he wanted to exchange them for fertilizer. Instructor Chen looked at him seriously. He told Lin Feng that he had already earned enough credits to apply for a promotion. He said staying in the lower academy no longer made sense for someone like him, and suggested that Lin Feng apply to move up to the upper academy. Lin Feng was surprised to hear that. His eyes widened a little as he repeated the words he had just heard. He asked what it meant to be promoted to the upper academy. The instructor explained that the Extraordinary Academy was divided into two parts, the upper academy and the lower academy. He said the lower academy was meant to train basic talents, just like the Storm Academy where Lin Feng was studying now. The instructor continued. He said that Sunwheel Academy was where elites from all the lower academies gathered. That place was recognized as the upper academy, and once someone entered Sunwheel Academy, the rewards they could earn were far greater in both quality and variety than anything offered in the lower academy. He added that a place like that was exactly where a genius like Lin Feng should go. Lin Feng listened silently, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. He quietly repeated the name Sunwheel Academy, the upper academy. Then he smiled slightly and thanked his teacher for explaining all that to him. The scene then changed to the academy mission hall. Lin Feng arrived there. He walked up to the counter and spoke politely. He said that he wanted to apply for promotion to Sunwheel Academy. The woman sitting behind the desk looked up at him with a relaxed smile. She asked for his name, department and credit voucher. He handed over his credit slip and she took it to check. A screen appeared in front of her, displaying his information. Name, Lin Feng. Department, Nature Department. Affiliation, Storm Academy. Current credits 30,135 Weighing. A few students nearby noticed it and began whispering. One of them said in surprise that Lin Feng actually had 30,000 credits. Another recognized him, calling him the guy who had crazily farmed Gloom Forest again and again. They wondered aloud how many times he must have cleared it to reach that number. The woman behind the desk finished checking his information. She told Lin Feng that his credits were verified and handed him a promotion mission scroll. She explained that once he completed the mission and passed the final review, he would officially become a member of Sunwheel Academy. Lin Feng accepted the scroll. Then he asked calmly if after his promotion, he would be able to exchange for gold-grade supplies. The red-haired woman explained that since Lin Feng was still part of Storm Academy, he could only exchange his credits for supplies ranging from bronze grade to silver grade. The blue-haired woman sitting at the table added on. She said that after Lin Feng completed his promotion, he would be able to exchange his credits for gold grade to even platinum grade rare supplies. Hearing this, he nodded politely and said his thanks. Lin Feng then walked through the academy mission area. He was surprised to see that his mission only required going to the defensive line area outside the city to look for something. Lin Feng thought that the location was close to the manor, so the task shouldn't be difficult. However, before he headed there, he said he needed to pick up something first. Lin Feng then walked alone through the academy's bright corridors and open walkways. Light reflected off the white buildings as he entered a nearby room. Inside, an older man with a blunt, straightforward tone handed Lin Feng a glowing star-shaped object. The man told him that although the Lamp of Nature was only a silver-grade item, its effects were not weaker than many gold-grade items. He warned Lin Feng to maintain it properly and be extremely careful not to let it touch or absorb necrotic energy. Lin Feng smiled calmly and thanked the senior for the reminder. His expression was relaxed and confident as he held the glowing lamp in his hand. After that, Lin Feng went outside and checked left and right to see if anyone was following him as he walked across the grass near the academy. Lin Feng walked deeper into the forest. As he moved between tree trunks and bushes, a thought appeared in his mind. That blacksmith had said that the Lamp of Nature could not be corrupted by necrotic energy. Even though the blacksmith said that, Lin Feng still felt something strange inside his heart. He didn't know why, but he had a strong urge to test it. Soon he sat on the ground and took out the Lamp of Nature which floated in front of him. Soft green energy circled around the crystal lamp as Lin Feng watched quietly. He then extended his hand toward it. A purple energy moved toward the lamp and the green nature energy of the lamp mixed with the sudden purple necrotic energy. In the next second, a huge undead skull appeared behind the lamp, glowing bright purple with fierce eyes. Bone-like structures formed around the lamp, turning it into something terrifying. Lin Feng was shocked as purple flames surged around him. He stared at the lamp closely. He then understood what had happened. The Lamp of Nature had completely changed. It had transformed from a nature-type item into an undead-type item. Lin Feng then infused natural energy into the lamp. The forest lit up with a bright flash of green light bursting through the trees. As the green energy calmed down, Lin Feng appeared sitting on the ground, with the lamp returned to its green crystal form. He quickly hid the transformed item before anyone could notice. After hiding it, he immediately stood up beside the giant trees, brushing off leaves from his hair. He acknowledged that he was lucky. The item seemed to be sentient. By channeling nature-type mana into it, he could restore it to its original state as the Lamp of Nature. Otherwise, explaining its sudden transformation would have been impossible. The scene shifted to the outskirts of the city, showing the broad exterior of Lin Feng's farm. Inside the large greenhouse-like structure, Lin Feng stretched his arms upward as he hung the restored Lamp of Nature from a wooden beam overhead. Sunlight filled the place, casting warm reflections across his back. He stepped back afterward. His expression was calm as he examined the lamp now suspended high above him. Just as he did that, he looked at the vegetable field outside. Rows of giant healthy cabbages started growing very fast, illuminating the crops in soft bright light. Lin Feng stood quietly watching this. He said that the power of the Lamp of Nature was truly terrifying. Even on the first try, it could make crops grow extremely fast. As he got dressed, Lin Feng mentioned that the Extraordinary Academy would surely have even more things like this. He said he needed to finish the Upper Academy promotion mission as soon as possible. After putting on his clothes, Lin Feng rushed forward, wrapped in a bright blue energy aura as he sprinted out of the farm. Just as he left, inside the farm, Lin Feng's blue undead came out near the wooden doorway of the greenhouse. It looked at the place where the Lamp of Nature was hung with confusion. Slowly, the blue undead raised its hand and took hold of the Lamp of Nature. Meanwhile, far away at the edge of the abandoned watchtower, the cracked pink tower stood under the light, surrounded by drifting smoke. As Lin Feng arrived at the site, he stared up at the towering pink watchtower covered in cracks. Mist and strange lights surrounded the entire area. He narrowed his eyes and muttered that this was indeed the mission location. He stepped forward carefully. Because it was a search mission and the mist was thick, he reminded himself to stay cautious. The air was cold and visibility was low. When he crouched down, he noticed something on the ground, a footprint. He examined it closely. The mark looked fresh. That meant someone had been here recently, maybe only moments ago. Surprised, Lin Feng wondered who would even come to such a strange and foggy place. Before he could think too long, he heard a sudden sharp noise echoing through the mist. He immediately looked up, alert and focused. At the top of the watchtower, two figures stood in the swirling fog. One of them shouted urgently for the other to hurry. Their young master had ordered them to steal the mission item before Lin Feng arrived so they could make him fail the task. A moment later, one of them laughed excitedly. He yelled that he had found the item. They were two men in suits standing inside the mist-filled watchtower. One of them had found the book, which was Lin Feng's mission item. One man grabbed the thick book in his hands while the other kept watch near the railing. The man holding the book spoke nervously. He warned his partner to keep his voice down, saying that Lin Feng could show up at any moment. The other man standing there showed no fear. He scoffed, saying there was nothing to worry about. When the time came, they could just burn the book using fire-type magic. The man with the book looked at him in disbelief. The standing man shrugged, tossing the book casually into the air. He explained that if the item was destroyed, Lin Feng wouldn't be able to complete his mission either. Suddenly, a gust of energy burst through the area, and the book fell from the watchtower. Lin Feng, standing below, caught the book in his arms before it could hit the ground. His eyes narrowed as he secured the thick volume. He looked at the two intruders with a faint smirk, asking if they meant he should thank them for making it easier. Both men froze, their faces twisted in panic as they realized Lin Feng was already there. One shouted in anger, blaming the other and saying everything was his fault. The man barked an order at his companion. He shouted for him to snatch the item back from Lin Feng. The two men lunged forward at high speed, blue flames bursting from their hands as they charged toward Lin Feng standing below. Their suits fluttered violently from the force as they leapt off the railing, aiming straight at their target. Seeing that, Lin Feng reacted immediately. A green glow surged around his hands as sharp tree roots erupted upward from the ground. The blades of tree roots shot up in a straight line, tearing through the ground and intercepting the attacker's path. The two suited men lost control mid-air, their bodies spinning helplessly as the tree roots wrapped around them. Lin Feng hung both of them upside down, completely bound by layers of tree roots. Their eyes bulged in shock as they dangled helplessly. Lin Feng stood in front of them with his hands on his hips, looking up at the two trapped men. A calm but dangerous look rested on his face. He told them that they would now give him an explanation. He raised his head slightly as a faint smile formed on his face. The scene then shifted to Lin Feng's quiet farm just outside the city. It was dusk and the soft orange light fell over wooden buildings and greenhouses. The air looked calm, but something strange was happening. Lin Feng tightened his fist in anger, realizing that it was Haru behind all this. As he continued walking, his thoughts raced. He didn't expect to run into that same person again. If things continued like this, his identity would eventually be exposed. He told himself he needed a plan. He had to think of something before it was too late. Just then, he stopped in surprise. His eyes widened at the sight in front of him. Standing near one of the farm structures was his blue undead, wearing a yellow construction helmet. In one hand it held a small red flag. In the other, it gripped the glowing nature lamp. Behind it, Lin Feng's undead bear was pulling a wooden cart full of logs. Several small undead rabbits and lizards crawled around on the ground. They acted like farm animals being guided by the blue humanoid undead, who looked like a supervisor. Lin Feng stood still, staring at the bizarre scene, the sunset reflecting off everything like a dream turning into a nightmare. He rubbed his eyes to see if he was seeing it right. Seeing the scene in front of his eyes, a surprised smile appeared on his face. He muttered to himself with excitement that it was fully automated. Meanwhile, inside Haru's room, the atmosphere was tense. One of Haru's subordinates bowed respectfully and gave his report. He said that they had already sent people to search the watchtower. They didn't find the two missing men, but traces of their mana were discovered at the scene. He explained carefully that there was a high chance the two men were already dead. Before he could say anything more, a loud crash echoed through the room. Haru, shirtless and furious, slammed his fist into the wall. Pieces of the wall crumbled and fell to the floor. His muscles were tense with anger as he shouted at his subordinates. He called them trash, saying none of them could handle even a small problem. The subordinate stood frozen, too afraid to speak. Haru turned, rage burning in his eyes. His jaw tightened. He muttered Lin Feng's name as he clenched his teeth. Haru looked out the window, holding a cigarette between his fingers. Anger slowly rose in his mind as he thought that Lin Feng had actually dared to kill his people. He looked back and gave a direct order. He told his subordinate to contact the people of Shadow Eclipse. He commanded him to offer the highest price possible and buy Lin Feng's life. The subordinate immediately bowed and hurried to follow the order. Haru's expression darkened as he muttered angrily that it must have been Lin Feng who killed Tuka. His killing intent filled the room as he stared ahead, thinking only of revenge. Then some time later at the Academy Mission Hall, the building stood in the warm sunlight. Inside, a staff member handed folded clothes to Lin Feng. The man congratulated him on officially becoming a member of Sunwheel Academy and wished that he would always walk on the path of seeking truth. Lin Feng smiled as he accepted the uniform. The man told him that these were his new uniform and his new student nameplate. Lin Feng looked happy as he held the clothes. He thought that after the promotion he could earn more credits and get more planting supplies. Later, at the entrance of the level 10 dungeon called Gloom Forest, several people gathered near the glowing portal. Sunlight shone through the trees around them. Lin Feng took out his new nameplate and showed it to verify himself. Then he walked up to the dungeon entrance and spoke to the staff member. He said he wanted to apply for a solo entry into the dungeon. The staff member looked at him and replied that it was no longer possible. Lin Feng was confused. He asked why, saying it had been allowed before. The staff member explained the academy's rules. According to the regulations, to preserve enough promotion resources and opportunities for lower house students, upper house students were no longer allowed to challenge level 10 and other low-level dungeons. Hearing this, Lin Feng froze in shock. Sweat ran down his face as he asked why he couldn't grind dungeons anymore. He said that he had planned to grind a bit more before returning. As he walked away in frustration, the staff member watched him leave and sighed in relief. He thought to himself that if Lin Feng didn't leave soon, the warehouse at this place would have been emptied by him. Lin Feng walked down the path with a troubled expression. He thought seriously about his situation. Without the dungeon, his best way to collect supplies was gone. He wondered what he should do now. Just then, someone approached him and asked if he was the newly promoted junior brother, Lin Feng. It was a tall man with short hair and a cigarette in his mouth who stood in front of him. He introduced himself as Ron and said that he had seen Lin Feng wandering here. He asked Lin Feng if he was unable to find a suitable mission. Ron continued speaking. He said that his squad had accepted a dungeon collection mission, but they were short one person. Lin Feng looked at him and quietly wondered if this man's appearance was a little too coincidental. Ron then wrapped an arm around Lin Feng's shoulder. He asked if Lin Feng was interested in joining them, saying it would help him get used to the difficulty of upper house dungeons. Lin Feng thought about it. He knew he needed credits to exchange for supplies, and he also needed to learn more about Sunwheel Academy's dungeons. He figured that if the mission was only a collection task, it shouldn't be too difficult. After thinking for a moment, Lin Feng nodded and said he would join. Hearing that, Ron smiled and said they should get going, because the others were already waiting at the dungeon entrance. A few minutes later, they arrived at the large tree gate covered in crystals, with a glowing portal in the center. Ron walked with Lin Feng, leading him toward a group of people. Ron introduced the girl and the tall man standing together. He pointed and said the girl was Yubei, who always had a cold expression, and the man was Carter, who always looked sour. Ron then explained their mission. They needed to collect a plant called moonlight grass, which grew deep inside the forest. The task required 10 stalks. He also said that according to the Academy's information, night elves were patrolling the area, so they should avoid fighting and focus on gathering. Finally, with Lin Feng included, the team of 4 stepped together into the glowing dungeon portal. Deep inside the shadow woods, the team walked together under the tall trees. Sunlight slipped through the leaves as they moved quietly. Soon they spotted a tall plant with white bell-shaped flowers. A label appeared beside it, Moonlight Grass. Ron quickly bent down and pulled out a bunch of the flowers. He smiled and said that this was their mission target, and he didn't expect things to go so smoothly. But suddenly, a loud rushing sound came from ahead. White smoke spread across the forest path near an old stone arch. Moments later, several sharp-winged creatures flew out from the smoke. They were night elf patrol soldiers. The group immediately stopped and got into fighting positions. Ron frowned and warned everyone that a night elf patrol had appeared, and they needed to prepare for battle. The night elf let out a sharp cry as her red eyes glowed brightly. Strange energy rippled around her body as she prepared to attack. Above in the sky, 2 large purple and green spikes shot downward with great force, leaving glowing trails behind them. Ron stepped forward and swung his blade, cutting through the attack with a powerful slash. The shockwave split the incoming energy apart. Ron gave an order with a serious expression. He told everyone to get into position. He shouted that Lin Feng should use nature magic to slow the enemy down, saying that night elves hated nature magic. Lin Feng nodded and said he understood. Then Lin Feng rushed forward and stretched out his hand. Green vines burst from him as he prepared to use his nature magic. The night elves were trapped by fast-growing green vines. More vines shot out, wrapping their bodies tightly. Lin Feng jumped and hung them onto a tree branch. He pulled the vines with force, controlling them with nature magic. Ron then moved and cut down the night elves with his sword again and again. As the leader of the group, Ron's blade was covered in elf blood as he sliced all of them in mid-air. He looked serious and said that it was bad. The enemies were calling for more companions. He turned and called for Carter and Yubei to move. Yubei smiled slightly. She stepped forward and told Carter, "Let's start." Carter nodded and said, "Roger that." He then placed his weapon on the ground and injected energy into it as he used his earth skill. A huge crack suddenly opened in the ground. Many of the night elves fell into the deep trench, but in the process, Lin Feng also lost his balance and slipped off the edge. He grabbed the cliff wall with one hand, barely holding on. He looked up at Ron in confusion, realizing what they really were. The team stood above the cliff. Ron apologized with a small smile. He said he was sorry and explained that Carter had just learned this skill and wasn't very good at it yet, so Lin Feng got caught by accident. Lin Feng, hanging from the cliff, looked at the group above him and asked if they really didn't plan to save him. Ron smiled and said it wasn't that they refused to save him. He explained that the junior brother, who had just been promoted to the upper house, was stubborn and acted on his own. He went alone to fight elite-level monsters. In the end, he died by himself, and they couldn't do anything. Lin Feng, still hanging from the cliff, asked if they weren't worried about being exposed for killing an academy student. Ron kept smiling and explained that the Sunwheel Academy nameplate had special processing. It could record strong magical energy. After Lin Feng died, they planned to take his nameplate and use it to record the elite monster's magic. Hearing that, with a bored expression, Lin Feng raised one last question. He asked if there was really no other way to know what happened here. Ron looked down at him and told him to trust them, saying they had done this many times and were professionals. Hearing that, Lin Feng nodded slowly and said he understood. Lin Feng then slowly opened his hand and let go, releasing his grip on the cliff edge. Lin Feng's body dropped straight down into the deep crack, falling fast without panic. Above, Ron laughed proudly. He said that Lin Feng must have known he couldn't resist, so he chose to jump and die quickly. But Ron suddenly froze. His eyes widened in shock, and sweat rolled down his face as he looked ahead. From inside the crack, Lin Feng hovered in the air, rising slowly with dark energy swirling around him. Everyone looked up at him in fear as the energy behind him grew stronger. Lin Feng's expression stayed cold as he calmly asked if they were ready to face his legion. Ron's group looked shocked as they saw Lin Feng flying. Ron shouted that this was bad. They turned and saw Lin Feng's huge undead monsters standing in front of them. Yubei repeated that this was not good. Lin Feng's mage undead smiled brightly as it raised its hands and formed a heart shape before releasing a huge blast of energy. Blue light exploded everywhere, hitting Ron's position directly before erupting violently. Injured, Ron stared in fear and stuttered that Lin Feng was using undead. He asked if Lin Feng was a necromancer, saying it was impossible. Lin Feng stood calmly, touching his chin. He looked at the frightened Ron and asked if those were his final words. Beaten and exhausted, Ron looked up with tired eyes. He slowly said that they should talk. He told Lin Feng that they had no real conflict and claimed that everything was arranged by Hiru. He begged Lin Feng to let them go, saying they now knew they were wrong. Lin Feng looked at him calmly and replied that they didn't truly know they were wrong, they only knew they were about to die. Ron hurried to explain. He said that Haru always believed Lin Feng had killed Tuka. He offered to help Lin Feng testify against Haru. Hearing that, Lin Feng crouched down and asked Ron who Tuka was. Ron froze, sweat dripping down his face, unsure how to answer. Lin Feng straightened up and waved his hand casually. He said it didn't matter anymore and ordered his summons to bury them. A huge burst of blue energy exploded behind him as the mage undead moved forward to finish the job. Ron, at the brink of death, lay on the ground and glared weakly. He shouted that he cursed Lin Feng to die a horrible death. Lin Feng stood above him with one foot on his face. He said that their good days were only just beginning. As they all died, Lin Feng looked at their corpses and used his necromancer power, ordering them to rise. All three of their corpses pushed themselves up from the ground. Dark marks spread around them. Ron and the other two stood up in purple and blue undead forms. All three looked at Lin Feng and knelt down. Lin Feng watched them and spoke calmly. He asked if undead created from humans naturally had higher intelligence than undead from other creatures. Lin Feng then held Ron's and the other two's nameplates in his hand and suddenly felt the magic of night elves coming from afar. Seeing that, he thought that he didn't need to handle the aftermath. But then he thought that since people had died, it was best to go back and report it. Lin Feng in the white shirt then walked toward the glowing blue portal, planning to leave. He reached out his hand, but the portal did not let him exit. He paused and wondered what was happening and why he couldn't go out. He stood in front of the portal, touching his chin and thinking quietly. Just then, a system window suddenly appeared in front of him. It said that a special item called Regret of the Past had activated. The message explained that the exit would stay closed until the dungeon was fully cleared. It also said that inside this dungeon, all of his attributes would become 200% stronger. Before Lin Feng could understand anything, suddenly the ground behind him cracked open, spreading dark shapes across the trees. A heavy thud followed as something big landed on the ground. Lin Feng turned around in surprise, and when he saw the thing behind him, his face turned pale. A massive black horse charged forward, pieces of earth flying under its hooves. On the horse's back sat a muscular knight covered in armor, purple lightning flickering around him. Lin Feng looked up, staring at the knight as the powerful creature stopped right in front of him. The armored knight charged forward on his horse, his spear glowing with purple lightning as he attacked with full force. Lin Feng watched him calmly. He narrowed his eyes and quietly sensed the man's movements. He could feel the enemy's power clearly. Behind Lin Feng, his 3 undead stood, glowing with purple flames. Lin Feng thought to himself that the enemy wasn't very hard to handle. Lin Feng then gave a simple order, telling his undead to attack. The undead instantly rushed forward. One of them shot out like a shadow, speeding straight toward the horse and knight. With full power it attacked the knight from the side. The impact was huge. The undead's purple energy slashed through the air, knocking the rider and the horse violently off balance. Then the second mage undead raised his arms, gathering strong purple energy around his body. A curved wave of power shot forward, cutting through the air. The attack rushed straight toward the knight riding his horse. The horse reared up as the purple energy wrapped around them, trying to trap them. The knight was thrown off balance. He fell from the horse, hitting the ground hard. Just then, the third undead's purple slash came flying from the side. She stood on a tree branch, swinging her sharp purple arrows with ease as she aimed her next attack. The knight's body was pierced by dark energy arrows, sending blood flying as he fell back. Nearby, Lin Feng calmly ate a banana and observed the fight. He noted that the undead this time moved with sharper instincts and even worked together, but he still felt something was missing. Just then, a blast of purple energy crashed into the ground, throwing debris everywhere. The wounded knight struggled up, demanding to know why Lin Feng could use the power of death. Lin Feng only looked at him for a moment, thinking quietly. Then he smiled brightly, telling the knight that he wouldn't understand. Saying that, he ordered his undead to finish the job and bury the knight. The knight who was standing suddenly froze as a black, claw-shaped hand shot through his body. His eyes widened in shock. It was Lin Feng's bear undead. The knight dropped to his knees as several dark arrows were lodged in his back and chest, and a big hole was in the middle of his chest. Just then, Lin Feng's undead bear roared and jumped high into the sky, landed on the knight, and killed him instantly. A blue screen appeared in the air, showing that the dungeon clear progress was at 50%. Lin Feng looked at the system notification in surprise and muttered that this dungeon used a dual boss system. He realized he had to continue deeper. He walked forward into the forest's core, where giant purple mushrooms covered the massive trees, and the path grew darker as he went inside. As he moved deeper into the forest, Lin leapt swiftly across the giant purple mushrooms growing along the massive trees. Suddenly, his eyes widened as he saw something in front of him. Ahead of him, strange purple flames surged upward, wrapping around a giant tree whose roots curled over an ancient stone altar. A glowing mechanism sat at its center, radiating ominous energy. A pair of sharp green eyes opened within the flames. A woman with long purple hair slowly appeared, her expression cold and unreadable. She stepped forward, purple wings of energy flaring behind her. Her distorted voice echoed through the chamber, asking why a human had trespassed into this sacred land. Lin remained calm. He told her plainly that if she couldn't speak normally, he would begin the fight. Just then, a floating system screen identified her as an elf guardian, level 18. She stood tall in her dark dress, surrounded by swirling corrupted magic, preparing to face him. The elf guardian lifted her hand, purple flames gathering around her fingers. Across the chamber, Lin Feng faced the rising red energy that filled the hall. Light particles floated upward as he stood firm, ready for battle. Just then, a blue screen appeared before him explaining the dungeon's combat rules. The spore domain would erode all non-undead and shadow creatures every few seconds, while his undead would regenerate mana on their own. Seeing this, Lin Feng realized that this meant his summons could stay active without draining his energy in this dungeon. A small smile formed on his face. He called the effect Regret of the Past a good thing. Then his undead figures appeared behind him, glowing with dark and pale energy. With confidence in his voice, he ordered them to crush the enemy. On the other hand, outside under the clear blue sky, Haru stood before the massive tree and the glowing dungeon gate which Lin Feng had entered. He spoke calmly, saying that even if Ron and the others failed, the dungeon still had a final boss waiting inside. He explained that regret of the past might boost attributes, but its true purpose was to trap anyone who entered. A smile formed on his face, and he muttered that even a 200% or 400% increase in attributes wouldn't be enough to defeat such a boss. The thought made him laugh with excitement, thrilled by the chaos that would follow. Meanwhile, deep inside the dungeon, a violent burst of blue energy exploded from the arena floor. From within the smoke, Lin Feng's mage undead slowly stepped out, radiating power while dragging the elf guardian. Lin Feng inside the dungeon watched with a blank expression, chewing on a banana as if nothing surprised him. A blue-white mist filled the dungeon floor as the mage undead knelt, grabbing the purple-haired elf guardian by her hair. She collapsed to her knees trembling. Lin Feng walked toward them calmly. Seeing him, the elf guardian suddenly fell back in shock, staring at him. In anger, she stared at the warrior knight who was originally He Peng the necromancer. Her distorted voice broke through the haze as she asked him why he had betrayed them. Hearing that, Lin Feng looked at the knight undead He Peng, who was confused, wondering if she was talking to him. The elf guardian glared fiercely, her green eyes shaking with anger. She shouted that he had destroyed her queen's hatchery and warned that the queen would come for him. But suddenly, her strength faded. She collapsed onto the glowing red floor, whispering her final words that the queen would find him. Suddenly, the whole ancient stone altar split apart as massive stone fragments fell to the ground. Then something shot upward, exploding in a burst of blinding light. A white pillar of energy spiraled out from the shattered earth, its swirling force filling the dungeon chamber. Lin Feng stood before it, watching calmly as the raging light climbed higher. A system screen appeared behind him, telling him that the Gloom Forest dungeon had been cleared. The clear time was 2 hours and 17 minutes, which was a new record. The dungeon clear evaluation was A. The system started calculating rewards. Purple energy flickered around him as he read the message. He took a bite of his banana and nodded, satisfied. He felt stronger than before. When the light faded, something new appeared at the center of the chamber, a large dark purple egg wrapped in flowing sinister energy. Lin Feng stepped closer, narrowing his eyes. He stared at the strange object pulsing before him, wondering what it was. He stepped closer and touched the massive purple egg inside the cavern. Immediately, a floating screen appeared above it. It showed the item's name, Embryo of the Chthonic Demon, a mythical grade object that was currently inactive. The description said it was a life seed left behind after an ancient chthonic demon had fallen, and it needed special conditions to hatch. Its current status was dormant, but it reacted to a strong death aura, increasing its affinity. Lin Feng stepped closer and placed his gloved hand on the egg's surface. His eyes narrowed with curiosity as he whispered to himself, wondering what this black egg really was and why the hatchery had such a strange item. He then lifted his hand, revealing a small silver ring resting on his palm. The ring was a simple storage tool. Purple energy surged out from the ring. The energy stretched toward the egg, surrounding it as he used the ring to store the giant egg away. Right after that, a blue portal opened beside him. Seeing the exit portal open, he wondered if he should return immediately. He stood still for a moment, thinking. Then he turned around and went back into the dungeon, leaving the dungeon exit portal behind. Lin Feng moved toward the fallen boss, a level 18 monster whose body lay cracked on the ground. He estimated that turning such a strong creature into an undead would consume a lot of energy, but once converted, it should reach the same level as Zhou. With a faint smile, he raised his hand and spoke a single command, "Arise." Dark energy wrapped around the corpse. The monster's form shifted and reshaped, turning into a sleek black and purple armored undead with glowing lines pulsing across its body. The undead slowly lifted itself from the rubble, landing lightly before him and looking down. Suddenly, its eyes opened. Sharp, bright, and intelligent. It declared in a cold, echoing voice that she was the Death Executioner. Hearing that, Lin Feng's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected that it could actually speak. The purple armored undead stood before him, glowing with sharp violet light. Lin Feng asked if it could talk. The undead answered firmly, saying she was the Death Executioner. Lin Feng told her he knew who she was, but the undead cut off his words and repeated that she was the Death Executioner. Hearing that, Lin Feng stared silently for a moment, but the undead again said that she was the Death Executioner. Lin Feng sighed in frustration, realizing what was happening, and told it to stop talking. From the swirling blue portal, Lin Feng stepped out of the light and returned to the outside from the entrance of the Gloom Forest dungeon, his figure emerging calmly from the gateway. Seeing him come out completely unscathed, Haru was too shocked and asked how this was possible. The students gathered outside the dungeon entrance were stunned as news spread that Lin Feng had cleared the Gloom Forest alone. One student stumbled back in shock, unable to believe what he heard. Others whispered that the dungeon usually wiped out entire 5-man squads, yet Lin Feng had walked out unharmed. Lin Feng's principal stepped forward, surprised to see only Lin Feng emerge from the portal. He calmly asked where Ron Carter and Yubei had gone. Lin Feng lowered his gaze and explained that their group had been ambushed by night elves while collecting moonlight grass. In the chaos they were separated. He handed their name badges to the principal, telling him that he barely escaped alive, accidentally triggered the boss fight and survived by luck. A single tear slid down his cheek as he said the other 3 were likely in grave danger. Hearing this, the principal examined the traces of magic on their name badges and confirmed that the power lingering on them did indeed come from night elves. His expression darkened as the situation became clear. Haru's fist tightened, shaking with anger. His expression grew tense as he stood among the group, listening to what Lin Feng was saying. The principal then questioned Lin Feng, asking if he had faced anything unusual after entering the dungeon. Lin Feng explained that as soon as he entered, he received a strange effect called regret of the past. Hearing that, the principal frowned and asked if he had made any enemies recently. Not far away, Haru watched them in disbelief. He couldn't accept what he heard, thinking it was impossible for Lin Feng to defeat the dungeon's boss alone. He wondered how anyone could achieve something like that. Hearing the principal's questions, Lin Feng turned his head slightly, his eyes focused as if he were searching for someone. He saw the students standing together in the sunlight, dressed neatly in white shirts and ties. Among them he immediately noticed Haru, who was tall and wearing a black shirt. Seeing Lin Feng looking at him, Haru's expression became tense, and sweat rolled down his face. Lin Feng lowered his head slightly and acted as if he were thinking about any enemies he had made. Then he smiled politely and told the principal he didn't know much, saying that he had just been promoted to Sunwheel Academy. Hearing that, the principal nodded seriously, promising to investigate everything and ensure justice. Lin Feng bowed gratefully, thanking the principal and saying he was counting on him. Meanwhile, Haru watched them from behind, his fists trembling and his jaw tightening as frustration built inside him. Suddenly, his face turned pale with shock. His eyes widened as he realized something alarming. He panicked and immediately started running, his steps desperate as Lin Feng's ominous aura spread around him. Then at night, the farm building stood quietly under the sky. Inside, Lin Feng sat beside the large purple embryo, wiping sweat from his neck. He noticed something strange and thought that the embryo had been fine outside the dungeon, but the moment he returned to the farm, it suddenly became restless. He remembered Savis's last words before dying, and wondered if the embryo had been placed inside the dungeon on purpose to be raised there. He touched the glowing shell and was shocked when the light reacted to him. Both his magic types, undead magic and nature magic, seemed to influence the embryo at the same time. He stared in confusion. Normally those two kinds of magic could never coexist. He stepped back and wondered why this was happening. Just like him, the embryo seemed able to contain both magic attributes within itself. He crossed his arms and walked with a stubborn expression, thinking to himself. He noted that he was human, yet the embryo clearly looked like something created by the demon race. Not understanding anything, he raised his hand and put the embryo back into his storage ring. He stared ahead and came to a conclusion. He rolled down his sleeves and tightened his tie, preparing himself. He decided there was only one way to handle the situation. Later, Lin Feng walked through the hallway and knocked on a door marked Principal's Office. A voice from inside told him to come in. He stepped into the room. The principal looked up from behind his desk and asked why Lin Feng was still awake so late. Lin Feng took out the embryo from his storage ring. The principal walked toward the strange purple embryo floating in the room. Lin Feng said that it was difficult to explain, so the principal should see it himself. The principal examined the embryo closely. His expression tightened as he asked where Lin Feng had found it. The principal cast a sound barrier around them. Lin Feng then explained that he had gotten it inside the Shadowwood dungeon. It had dropped after he defeated the final boss. He said that at first he thought it was only a normal item drop, but something later made him realize it was different. The principal lowered his head while thinking. He then said that this was definitely the embryo of a primordial demon. He continued speaking, saying the demon race had managed to avoid their detection and was secretly cultivating these things inside dungeons. Lin Feng looked shocked, asking what a primordial demon was. The principal began explaining. He said primordial demons were a special unit of the demon race, and they fed on humans. By feeding on humans they gained great power, some even strong enough to cross space. He explained the types of demons. Small creature-like demons were standard type 1. Then came larger muscular demons who even fought with weapons. They were type 4 demons. Next came giant dragon-like beings that appeared in a swirl of blood-colored energy. They were blood-lair lords. The principal continued speaking. He said that some primordial demons who gained the ability to cross space used dungeon mechanics to plant seeds or embryos. He added that these demons used the battles, deaths, and magic energy of adventurers as nourishment so the embryos could quietly hatch. The principal spoke with a serious look. He explained that once a demon embryo matured, it would break through the dungeon and appear in the real world. He examined the purple embryo closely, his hand brushing against its surface. He said this one had only just entered its growth phase. If it had remained inside the dungeon absorbing nutrients, it would have hatched in 6 months at most. He continued, saying that after hatching, it would become a very high-level primordial demon, and if chaos erupted inside the academy, the consequences would be unimaginable. Then he added that what puzzled him most was how deeply hidden this kind of embryo normally was. It should not appear unless there was a similar aura nearby. He asked if Lin Feng understood what he meant. Hearing that, Lin Feng suddenly stiffened, sweat forming on his face as the principal's words sank in. His eyes widened in shock. But then the principal smiled and told Lin Feng he was only teasing him. He said Lin Feng had done a good thing by handing over the embryo. For personal and professional reasons, he wouldn't punish him. He explained that everyone had secrets and the academy respected that. As long as Lin Feng didn't harm the academy or break moral rules, geniuses like him would always be given room to grow. Then the principal became serious. He said he needed Lin Feng's promise. No matter what power Lin Feng gained, he must remember that he was a student of Sunwheel Academy and a member of the human faction. Lin Feng nodded and said he would remember. The principal was satisfied. He patted Lin Feng happily on the head. Next, a glowing item appeared in his hand, a small golden flag. The principal explained that it was a territory banner, given to Lin Feng both as a reward for turning in the embryo and as an investment in his potential. He said that if Lin Feng planted the banner on any land he found suitable, it would create a territory barrier with a 500-meter radius and even allow some modification of the terrain. Lin Feng held the glowing banner in his hands. He could feel the strong laws and energy inside it. His eyes lit up with excitement. He said that his farm needed this exact kind of power. The principal leaned back on the sofa and told Lin Feng that if there was nothing else he could go rest. He said he would send someone else to handle the matter. Lin Feng nodded and replied that he understood. Before he left, the principal added that there would be a freshman exchange meeting in the academy auditorium in 3 days and told Lin Feng that he could go there to meet other students. The principal also mentioned that a nature-type instructor had submitted an interesting research topic before going to the front lines. The topic was about plant cultivation and hybridization. Hearing this, Lin Feng looked at the small golden flag in his hand and softly repeated the words, wondering about hybridization and breeding. He then thought to himself that before this, he had only combined undead and plants in a rough way. He wondered what would happen if he fully hybridized them instead. Later he returned to his farmhouse. He crouched on the ground with the glowing flag and prepared to plant it into the earth. Just as he planted it, a green light from a magic circle shot upward, filling the area with nature energy. Lin Feng looked at it and said that after using the territory banner, the amount of nature magic was increasing. He stood inside the greenhouse and complained that mixing undead powers with hybridization was still extremely hard to understand. He looked at his undead lying on the ground and was lost in thought. But suddenly, he paused and narrowed his eyes. He sensed something unusual and wondered aloud if something was happening to Savis, whom he had sent after Haru. The scene then shifted to Haru's room. Haru sat alone on a long couch, looking frustrated. He slammed his hand on the seat and shouted angrily that his subordinates were useless, unable to handle even a kid who had just been promoted. He spoke with a tense expression. He said they could not wait any longer. The investigation at Sunwheel Academy had already found clues. He clenched his teeth and added that if anyone discovered he was the one who killed Tuka, things would become dangerous for him. He quickly moved toward a door and pulled it open. Behind it, another door shifted aside with a mechanical sound. He stepped inside and went down a staircase lit by a small flame on a pedestal. Soon, he entered a large underground hall. A giant dark statue with many arms and floating spheres stood before him, surrounded by burning torches. He knelt down in front of the statue. Then he suddenly raised a knife and slashed his own hand. Blood dripped onto the floor as he held his injured hand tightly. A dark armored figure with glowing red eyes spoke in an angry voice. He asked why Haru had disturbed him, and reminded him that he should only be called if something urgent happened. Haru, lying weakly on the ground, addressed him with respect. He called the being Great Goladosa and said he needed guidance. He explained that someone named Lin Feng was ruining Golodosa's plan, and he asked how he should eliminate him. Hearing this, Golodosa grew angry, and his eyes shone brighter. He said that anyone who tried to defy fate would be punished, and that he would send someone to deal with Lin Feng. Haru bowed his head and thanked him. He nervously added that he hoped it would be done quickly. Hearing this, Golodosa suddenly burst with rage. A beam of red energy shot out and struck Haru with overwhelming force. As Haru's body was thrown back, Golodosa's cold voice echoed again, warning him not to give orders or act as if he had authority. He called Haru an insect. Red light and shattered debris flew everywhere as Haru's body crashed violently from the attack. A huge explosion hit Haru's body and sent him flying back. The blast was bright red and yellow, and he couldn't stop himself from being thrown through the air. The impact pushed him across the ground, breaking rocks everywhere as he rolled and crashed. He got up slowly, his clothes torn and his body covered in injuries. With anger on his face, he shouted that it was all Lin Feng's fault. He sat down among the broken stones, breathing heavily, not knowing that a glowing spirit was beside him, floating quietly. Later, a group of men wearing black suits entered the academy auditorium for the freshman exchange meeting. Lin Feng was also among them. Some distance away, Lin Feng sat alone on a bench, wearing a black suit. He looked calm but bored. He thought to himself that this was too dull and that he should not have listened to the principal's long talk. He complained that he could have used this time to research hybridization on his farm instead, which would have been better. He slowly chewed his food and said that the taste wasn't bad. Just then a blonde student walked toward him and called out, asking if he was student Lin Feng. Lin Feng paused while eating and looked toward the blonde student. The blonde student smiled politely. He asked Lin Feng if it was true that he had solo cleared the Shadowwood dungeon by himself. He said it was amazing and asked if he could get some advice. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes slightly. In his thoughts he said that this person felt strange. Everyone else had been avoiding him, yet this student approached him on purpose. Lin Feng lowered his head and covered his face with one hand. He told the blonde student that he didn't want to talk about the dungeon, saying that 3 seniors had died there. He squeezed out fake sobs while holding a piece of bread in his other hand. The blonde student softened. He apologized, saying he hadn't meant to bring up something painful. He promised to come back another time to ask for advice. As he turned away, the blonde student's expression changed. In his thoughts, he questioned Lin Feng's reputation. He wondered if this was really the person Lord Golodosa wanted him to eliminate, thinking that Lin Feng didn't seem very impressive. Lin Feng watched the blonde student walk out of the room. His face remained calm and unreadable as he stayed seated. Later the scene shifted to Haru's room, where Haru was lying alone on the bed in his dimly lit room, the space quiet and still around him. Injured, Haru stared up at the ceiling. He said that the Iron Lion Duke, the nature instructors and Golodosa had all been notified. Even so, he wondered why he still felt uneasy. Just then, a purple shadow rose from the floor beside him. From the shadows, a voice came, telling Haru that feeling uneasy was exactly right. Startled, Haru sat up and demanded to know who was there. Just then, Lin Feng appeared from within the glowing shadow, along with his purple undead that had been spying on Haru. Undead aura swirled around them as Haru stared at them in shock. Lin Feng raised one finger and asked how many that was. Injured, Haru hesitated and asked if it was number 1. Lin Feng grinned and said he was correct. Green energy wrapped around his fist as he stepped forward. He told Haru that he had put up with him for far too long, and then Lin Feng struck him with a powerful punch, the green aura exploding on impact. Haru was thrown back hard, smashing into the ground as purple energy sparked around him. Lin Feng stood there as dark flame burned in his hand. Injured, Haru lifted his head and stared at Lin Feng, anger flashing in his eyes. As he struggled to get up, his body trembled with the same purple light. Lin Feng watched him without moving. Haru pushed himself up on one arm and asked Lin Feng how he got in. Lin Feng stepped forward with his undead floating behind him. He asked Haru if the events in the Gloom Forest dungeon were done by him. Hearing that, Haru clenched his teeth and shook with anger. Purple sparks flickered across his body as he shouted, asking how Lin Feng dared to hit him. Haru's body trembled as dark purple energy wrapped around him. His muscles bulged, veins lit with demonic light, and his fingers curled like claws. In front of him, Lin Feng stood calmly, his summoned undead glowing with the same kind of energy. Haru then bent forward, his back cracking as more energy surged out. Flames of purple rose around him, twisting like living shadows while markings spread across his skin. He raised his head and with red glowing eyes used his Demon Clan forbidden technique, flesh sacrifice. His body transformed further, ears sharpening, energy spreading, and power overflowing from every limb. He stood tall in his new demonic form, surrounded by swirling flames of purple and black. Seeing that, Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. He recognized the technique immediately and asked sharply if Haru was a spy of the demon clan. Hearing Lin Feng call him demonized, Haru only laughed. He declared that he was a devout believer of Gulletiosa. Hearing this, Lin Feng grew serious, realizing that Haru was connected to the 7th Demon King Gulletiosa. Demonized Haru glared fiercely, purple flames twisting around his body. He shouted with rage, demanding how Lin Feng dared to speak his lord's name so casually. Without warning, he lunged forward. Darkness wrapped around his arms as he roared, telling Lin Feng to die. But Lin Feng stood his ground, his undead floating beside him and coming forward, surrounded by swirling violet energy. As Haru charged at full speed to attack, Lin Feng's undead responded instantly. She swung her glowing scythe upward, releasing a crescent slash of bright purple light that blocked Haru's attack. But Haru didn't back down and released more demonic energy, causing the female undead scythe to start cracking. The next second, purple fire came out of Haru's hand and fell on the female undead's scythe, shattering it instantly. The female undead looked at her weapon, which was completely destroyed, and Haru's corrosive power was extremely strong. Lin Feng watched her with a serious face. In his mind, he admitted that he had only wanted to test Haru a little, but now things had gotten bad. The female undead created and raised her huge scythe again, releasing huge amounts of necro energy to attack Haru. As that energy hit Haru, he let out a loud roar. Now blue and purple flames burst from his body as he spread his arms wide. He shouted that he had been thinking about how to deal with Lin Feng, but he never expected Lin Feng to walk right into his hands. Seeing Haru unleash more and more energy, Lin Feng also got ready to release his energy as he made up his mind. In his thoughts, he decided that the only way now was to use Haru's distraction and finish the fight as quickly as possible. Haru, covered in blue flames, stood in front of Lin Feng. Seeing that, Lin Feng hid his hand behind him and used his summoning skill. The next second, several shadowy undead appeared behind Lin Feng. They all had sharp ears, dark bodies, and strange glowing flames. They stood like an army at his side, making his presence even more dangerous. Seeing that, Haru was shocked. He immediately recognized that Lin Feng was using undead magic. His face twisted with anger as he shouted that Lin Feng really was problematic. Tears streamed down Haru's face as he said that Tuka's sacrifice was not wasted, because they had discovered a human genius. While he was lost in thought, one of Lin Feng's undead stepped forward and attacked Haru with its huge spear. He moved fast and struck, sending his glowing spear straight toward Haru. That sharp purple spear of energy pierced Haru's chest. Haru fell to the ground before he could understand anything. His body was bruised, but his eyes still burned fiercely. From the shadows ahead, Lin Feng's cold voice questioned him if he was the one who killed Tuka. Haru clenched his teeth. Dark energy wrapped around his limbs as he placed a hand on his chest. His voice trembled with ritualistic intensity as he began chanting that with blood as the guide and the soul as the bridge, he welcomed the master's will to descend upon his body. Immediately, black veins pulsed across Haru's skin and his eyes glowed red. A violent surge of purple fire burst outward and a magic circle lit up beneath him, filling the room with swirling patterns. Haru told Lin Feng to tremble and welcome the descent of the Demon King. He announced her name, Gulletiosa. As he said that, a towering figure of shadow and horns appeared above him, surrounded by floating spheres and blazing violet flames. Haru knelt before her, lowering his head. He addressed the being reverently as Lord Gulletiosa. But before Haru could continue, Gulletiosa punched him, asking how a mere ant dared to call her true name. Injured, Haru sat on the floor, purple flames drifting around him. He looked up with confusion and called her lord. In front of him, Lin Feng stood calmly, and behind him all of his powerful undead appeared, their glowing forms filling the room. Haru pointed at him and asked his lord to kill him. Lin Feng's mage undead came forward and raised his hand, gathering bright purple energy. He attacked the Demon King with an energy beam. Demon King Gulletiosa was surprised to see that Lin Feng was a necromancer. She immediately realized that Heikui had already been defeated. She then raised her shield, which came out of the ground to block Lin Feng's mage undead's energy beam. But this made Demon King Gulletiosa realize that her summoner was simply too weak, too frail, and because of that her mana couldn't maintain the defensive formation. Thinking that, she raised her hand toward Haru, holding it in front of him and sucking energy from his body. Before he could understand anything, Demon King Gulletiosa's massive claw descended from above. He screamed in panic, shouting as demon energy ripped through his body. His form twisted, cracking apart under the pressure of the demonic energy. Demon King Gulletiosa absorbed all of his demonic energy. Its single red eye glowed fiercely as tendrils of power wrapped around its frame. After Guladeus absorbed everything from Haru's body and threw the weakened Haru aside, then with a deep resonant voice, Demon King Guladeus declared that now she could fight Lin, the successor of the necromancer, properly. Lin Feng stood quietly. He looked at Demon King Guladeus and thought that even if all of his undead fought together, they still wouldn't be strong enough to defeat the Demon King head-on. Charging straight in would only get them all killed. It was not a smart plan. Then he noticed Haru on the ground, who had been drained earlier and lay weak. Then he looked at the glowing magic circle in the aura, shining with summoning energy. Seeing this, Lin Feng's expression changed. A small smile formed, and he thought of a way. Then he raised his voice and called Demon King Guladeus a foolish demon clan member, saying that since the demon already knew he was a necromancer, he was surprised that the demon didn't run away. Instead, the demon actually wanted to challenge him. He said that was interesting. The purple flames around Lin Feng grew brighter as he lifted his hand. With a sharp gesture, he pointed forward and commanded his undead to attack. Hearing that, Demon King Guladeus said that if this was Lin Feng's way of provoking him, then so be it. He created a chain made of demonic energy and swung it toward Lin Feng, saying he would act as he wished. Seeing that, Lin Feng's female undead came forward and spun her staff as circles of light formed around her. A bright defensive wall flashed into existence. Lin Feng's undead mage stepped forward, summoning countless floating bubbles around his body. The bubbles shimmered and formed a protective layer. But they couldn't block Demon King Guladeus's attack. They were sent flying. Demon King Guladeus looked at them with disdain. He mocked them, saying they were so weak that he was beginning to doubt how Lin Feng even handled Heiqi. With the second attack, Demon King Guladeus completely destroyed Lin Feng's undead, shattering them instantly. After destroying Lin Feng's undead, Demon King Guladeus grabbed Lin Feng and lifted him into the air, saying that before Lin Feng died, he would allow him to say his last words. Demon King Guladeus called Lin Feng a pitiful successor, and said he did not understand the power of the undead at all, but suddenly Lin Feng smiled. He said that it was actually Demon King Guladeus who didn't understand the power of the undead. He pointed at his undead, who was behind Demon King Guladeus holding dead Haru's head, and explained that he had just noticed that when Demon King Guladeus appeared, it drained Haru's mana but did not kill him. He also noticed that the mana used for the summoning formation had decreased a lot. Hearing that, the undead creature's eye widened in shock. Lin Feng freed himself from the Demon King, telling him that his summoning still had limitations. As he said that, Demon King Guladeus's body started to weaken. Lin Feng, standing below, smirked slightly and told him that his guess had been right all along. Demon King Guladeus roared in rage, shouting that it wouldn't let Lin Feng go. As he said that, its massive body erupted with energy as pieces of its form began to scatter apart. Light burst around as Demon King Guladeus's body cracked and dissolved into fragments, leaving only fading traces in the air. Once the chaos settled, Lin Feng was left alone standing on the shattered ground. He lifted a hand to the back of his head and gave a relaxed smile, telling Demon King Guladeus that he would be waiting. Not far away, some officers noticed the explosion and rushed toward the scene. One of them shouted in alarm, telling the others to go check what happened. Lin Feng turned his head slightly as he heard their voices. His eyes widened as he looked toward the approaching figures, the faint purple sparks around him flickering in the dark. Without a second thought, Lin Feng ran away from there, saying this was not good. Then, at dawn, he arrived at his farm outside the city. He walked forward slowly, the sunlight falling on him. He thought to himself that his mana was almost gone and that he had barely escaped in time. He raised his fist slightly and reflected that if he hadn't won his final gamble, he would have been finished. Thinking all that, he walked toward his room. But suddenly, a crack appeared in the barrier around his farm. Lin Feng stopped and turned his head sharply, asking who it was. Just then, a blonde man broke the barrier and landed in front of him. When Lin Feng saw that person, he immediately recognized him. It was the same blonde man whom Lin Feng had met at the students' gathering, and the one whom Demon King Guladeus had sent to kill Lin Feng. The blonde man slowly walked forward, a sword hanging on his back. His face looked annoyed. He told Lin Feng that he had been enjoying a mission where he was killing freely, but his lord had suddenly stopped him. Because of that, he was in a very bad mood. He pulled out his sword with a grin and asked Lin Feng if he could stand there and let him kill him. Hearing that, Lin Feng didn't get scared. He raised his hand slightly and calmly told all his undead to come out. He waved his hand again, expecting his undead to appear, but nothing happened. His expression changed in shock. He realized his mana was completely empty from the last fight. His body was in a mana vacuum and he couldn't summon anything right now. In his eyes, he saw the reflection of the blonde man rushing at him at full speed, sword ready to strike. The blonde man leaped forward like a bullet, swinging his blade toward Lin Feng as the attack exploded with force. On Lin Feng's farm, the blonde attacker rushed forward with a wide swing of his weapon. Lin Feng jumped back to avoid the strike. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. He remembered something important. He thought about how the lamp of nature could make the undead stronger. He remembered that last time his warrior undead was holding the lamp of nature in its hand, surrounded by bright energy. Lin Feng's expression changed. He realized that if he could get the lamp of nature, he might still have a chance to turn the fight around. But he also knew time was almost gone. He ran forward quickly, but everything was happening too fast. As he ran away, suddenly his farm's powerful green earth spirit appeared, glowing brightly in the air. Its voice shouted, telling Lin Feng to fall back. The blonde man swung his weapon down with full force. Lin Feng quickly moved back, the strike cutting through the air where he had just been. The blonde attacker didn't stop. He swung again, creating a bright arc of light as he slashed forward. Lin Feng stepped back fast, the blow hitting the ground instead. Both of them stood facing each other under the orange sunset. The blonde man held his blade ready while Lin Feng kept his stance light, watching carefully. But the next second, the ground behind Lin Feng cracked. A huge tree root rose up from beneath the earth, glowing in the sunset. The blonde man's eyes widened as he jumped backward. Then a massive tree root covered in green energy rose from the broken ground. The blonde man turned toward it, shocked, as green light swirled around the giant body. The huge tree root attacked, smashing down on the ground and sending rocks flying everywhere. The impact threw the blonde-haired man backward as he tried to protect himself from the debris. More tree roots rose from the cracked earth. One of them slammed downward at the blonde man while others wrapped around Lin Feng. Lin Feng was shocked as the glowing tree roots lifted him into the air. Shock filled his face as he wondered what was happening. Those tree roots formed a barrier around Lin Feng. A thick wall of tree roots was created in front of that blonde man. The blonde man glared at the tree root wall and said coldly that this was just a cheap trick. Bright energy gathered around his sword as he swung it and activated mana infusion. The blonde man then swung his blade, flames curling around him. A bright slash cut through the air as he used his off-the-charts handsome swordsmanship technique. He stepped forward and stabbed at the giant tree root in front of him. Pieces of rock and bark cracked off as the blade hit. His sword cut through those tree roots like butter as he dragged his sword down in a long fiery arc. His face stayed calm and focused. As he looked at the other side, he saw Lin Feng running away as fast as he could. His shadow stretched under the orange sunset while the blonde man watched him go. Watching Lin Feng run like this, the blonde man remembered something from their past in a dark hall filled with tall stone pillars. A man in black was running at that time. From behind, this blonde man was also chasing him. His expression was sharp and determined as he sprinted forward, gripping the sword on his back, ready for the chase. But before he could catch up, a towering shadowy figure appeared behind the blonde man. It was the Demon King Gladiosa. His voice echoed, telling the blonde man to abort the mission and stop chasing. The blonde man looked up sharply. He argued that the noble they were chasing was part of their plan, and if he didn't kill him now, the enforcement team would arrive and he would be the one in danger. But Demon King Gladiosa glared down at him and asked if he was questioning its decision. The pressure of Demon King Gladiosa hit the blonde man instantly. The blonde man was thrown back and crashed to the ground inside the stone hall. Struggling to rise, he pressed his hand to the floor. But suddenly blue energy started glowing around his whole body. Demon King Gladiosa told him to follow his mark, saying it would lead him forward to find the noble and kill him. Just as Demon King Gladiosa said that, a glowing emblem appeared. It was a circular crest with a coiled dragon in its center. This was the Gladiosa mark. The blonde man knelt down, holding the Gladiosa mark in his hand. He lowered his head and said softly that he would follow his lord's order. Now in the present, remembering the Gladiosa mark, the blonde man took it out and walked toward the tree root wall formed in front of him. Again, golden flames started rising from his palm as he looked at the plant wall in front, asking if these plants were from that farm before. He hit the plant wall with the golden flames in his hand. A huge explosion followed, shaking the ground and scattering debris everywhere. Through the flames he walked to the other side of the plant wall, realizing how it worked. Fire wrapped around him as he stepped forward, his eyes sharp. He pointed at Lin Feng and called him a traitor. He rushed forward again, fire rising from his hands as he shouted that trying to run wouldn't be that easy. Lin Feng sprinted across the ground as fast as he could. From behind, the blonde man chased him with heavy, powerful steps, closing the distance with every stride. Dust and heat rose around them as the sun painted the entire scene orange. But as he got closer to Lin Feng, some tree vines attacked him from all directions. The blonde man leapt into the air. His body spun and twisted, dodging all those tree vines. Lin Feng kept running away in fear, but the blonde fighter was already mid-air behind him, sword drawn and ready to strike. Suddenly, the blonde man jumped and with powerful force grabbed Lin Feng and yanked him downward. His body smashed helplessly onto the ground as debris floated around him. The blonde man landed on the ground with a sharp smile. He looked at Lin Feng and said coldly that it was over. Under the burning sunset, the blonde man raised his sword high above his head. His stance showed that he was ready to bring Lin Feng down with full force, ending the chase once and for all. But Lin Feng looked straight at the blonde man with a calm, confident smile and said it really was over. Lin Feng had already gotten the lamp of nature. The glowing crystal of the lamp of nature floated above his hand, shining with bright light as Lin Feng tried to activate it. Green energy wrapped around it. Facing Lin Feng, the blonde man held his sword up, ready to end him. At the same time, the lamp of nature didn't activate completely. Seeing that, Lin Feng was shocked, wondering if a necromancer's mana alone wasn't enough to activate the lamp of nature. Lin Feng froze in shock, but then he used his nature energy, saying he didn't care anymore and demanded the crystal to light up for him. Just as he used his nature mana, green flames suddenly burst out, and the lamp of nature shone even brighter. Lin Feng immediately used its power to push back the blonde man. The blonde man's eyes widened in shock as the glowing light reflected on his face. Lin Feng then stood up with his body glowing softly as the lamp of nature floated in his hand. The next second, Lin Feng's whole farmland exploded with a wave of energy. The ground shook as the whole farmland was filled with nature energy. Green vines broke through the earth and quickly spread across the area. They wrapped around trees and buildings, moving like living snakes. The blonde man turned and saw the vines heading straight toward him. Before he could react, they wrapped around his arms and legs, holding him tightly. He glared at those green vines with anger, shouting in rage. He yelled that Lin Feng was a disgusting nature type. He struggled as the glowing vines tightened around his body. The blonde man used all his power and broke free from all those vines by tearing them apart. Just as he fell on the ground, he took out his Gladius mark. Purple energy covered his whole body and soared as he activated its full power. The Gladius mark released huge amounts of demon energy, which the blonde man absorbed and released into the surroundings. The blonde man moved with lightning speed and attacked Lin Feng from all directions with his sword. Seeing him coming, Lin Feng stepped forward and used the lamp of nature, releasing huge amounts of nature energy. Using all that natural energy, Lin Feng finally summoned his undead spirit. Lin Feng's warrior undead, He Kui, who was the original necromancer, appeared in front of Lin Feng, but he wasn't in his purple undead form. His whole body was covered by leaves and vines as he appeared in his human form. Just as he appeared, he used nature energy to block the blonde man's multiple sword strikes. The blonde man used his demonic energy to push He Kui with full power, but it was no use. On top of that, the blonde man's sword broke into pieces completely. He Kui, covered in vines, stepped forward through the dust, his eyes sharp as more green power gathered around his arms. Seeing him, the blonde man's eyes widened in shock. He recognized Lin Feng's undead and asked if He Kui was not dead. But He Kui didn't say anything, and just stood with green flames dancing around him, ready for the next strike. Lin Feng, surrounded by glowing green energy, looked forward with a calm face. He gave a cold order to his undead, telling it to kill the blonde man. At his command, He Kui, with leaf-like vines around his body, rushed forward. His arms swung out, green fire trailing behind him as he grabbed the blonde man and dragged him along. The blonde man's eyes widened in shock. He shouted, telling He Kui that they were allies. But before he could finish, a violent impact followed. A huge splash of blood burst across the scene. The man He Kui had grabbed was smashed brutally. His broken body fell to the ground, blood leaking from it as green flames burned around him. After killing the blonde man, Lin Feng fell on his knees and coughed weakly. He was completely exhausted. The next second, Lin Feng lay on the ground as the glowing green flames started to fade from his body. He looked helpless and told He Kui that he was done for. In the next moment, he collapsed completely, falling over with no strength left. His body hit the ground hard. The lamp of nature crystal floated nearby, completely drained of its power. He Kui stood beside Lin Feng, watching him with a calm expression. He let out a slow breath, seeing that Lin Feng was just unconscious. Then He Kui's body started to change. Purple flames wrapped around him, climbing across his skin. His green vine-like armor shifted and disappeared under the rising dark energy. His entire form transformed. Black, flame-shaped markings spread across his chest and arms. Purple fire swirled around him as his muscles tightened and his eyes sharpened. He completely transformed into his undead